stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to do Friends Rentals first? What time is it?
No, Mr. Shalhoub, it's 3:05.
3:05. Calling Mr. Shalhoub.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
A couple of things real quick. There's no citizen participation, so Mike Polchlopak asked me to present and read a complaint from him on the safety issues of the targets that are right up against his property line. So, I know I'm limited to 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, just so you, but I have copies for you guys.
Okay.
I know I'm limited, so it's going to be quick.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So this is just from the continuation from the page one, the actual written part of the complaint. It says on May 22nd, 2018, Select Board Chairman Stephen Shinaki stated that the town's main responsibility was to provide a safe environment for all of its inhabitants to live in and work. This promised safe environment has been denied to me by the actions of the Granby Bow and Gun Club. These actions consist of establishing a long-range target within 50 feet or closer of my common property line, shared by myself and the club. These targets have minimal to no backstop. There is no situation to allow for overshoots or ricochets from entering my property. The targets are located within the area which past and present selectmen have issued a cease and desist order against their use. The targets last observed in January 2019 remain in current use, and as witnessed by me and through either sound or bullets impacting them or increase in bullet holes through them and over time. My complaint is that there has been little to no attempt by the town leaders to enforce this active cease and desist order, although the use of the subject target area has been continuous and brought to the attention of various town departments and their employees by myself and other residents and persons affected by their use. I request that the Select Board demand the removal of these targets and smooth illegally excavated berms from the cease and desist area, also known as the 1,000-yard range, designated by that land recently clear-cut by Tetrault and Son Logging during the 2015-2016 winter. That action was also witnessed by me and verified by Google Earth photos. It is my hope that the target removal will bring a halt to the rifle fire that could bring great injury or death to myself or others while legally in use of my enjoyment of my land. In closing, I am seeking the board to deny, when possible, or at the minimal, recommend denial of any permitting allowing the use of the discussed property for future target placement and their subsequent use. If in fact any permitting is granted, it would allow the placement of targets with no regard to the abutter's safety or well-being. This statement is based on the conversation I had with the environmental police, Lieutenant Anthony Tarangi, I believe is Tranghese, who cautioned me that the targets in question, inclusive of those along our property line, are not breaking any state firearm laws and that control their placement and use is only through the town bylaws and zoning. I am thanking the board in advance for their prompt action on this request and that current presence of the discussed targets again prevent necessary forest harvesting from areas of my land. This encumbrance has been in effect for over 2 years. Okay, and these are responses to question 2 about who he's spoken to in the past and what information he's provided to the town manager or others. I'm not going to bother reading that at the moment. I would touch on the exhibits real quickly. Number 1 is that is the report from the Mr. Tarangi, the Tranghese, regarding his observations when he was called out there when they placed the first berm, which was a 750-yard berm, especially the investigative summary. And it's, some of the areas I highlighted is clear and evident that Mr. Polchapek has realistic concerns for his public safety while working or recreating upon his property. Based upon my training and experience, coupled with 34 years of hunter safety instruction and the safe handling of firearms, I have advised the club of the concerns identified by the complainant in this agency. Upon visual inspection, the backstops do not provide an adequate barrier to someone positioned on Mr. Polchapek's bordering property.
You on
And
this page, Joe?
Yes, it's down, this is the investigative
Okay,
summary.
I didn't know what was highlighted.
I just highlighted mine,
Okay.
just so I could touch on, I know it's going to be very time limited. And I
Okay.
saw that it was going to be limited to 15 minutes. And then the last one is the current, and you can have all of this for your future reference in your investigation. And the current shooting range backstop bordering Mr. Polchapek's property raises cause for concern. Mr. Polchapek's timber cutting and harvesting in this immediate area places him in the immediate area of downrange use of high-powered ammunition and projectiles, which violates all the principles of basic hunter safety. Okay? Exhibit 2 is a signed letter that Mr. Polchapek had sent to the Select Board through Mr. Martin previously. Exhibit 3 is a to whom it may concern letter that was submitted by the concerned Granby citizens to the Conservation Commission, outlining the concerns about the placement of the targets and them being in wetland buffer areas. Exhibit 4, since I had previously heard of concerns that what they were doing out there was safe and professional, this is from the NRA shooter range setup, shooter instructions.
You got any kind of, just NRA?
It's in the list of exhibits there on page 3. It's Exhibit 4, NRA Rifle Building Source Book.
Photo 4 or?
And this is just some of the pages. It's like 600 and something pages long.
Okay.
It's Exhibit 4, yeah. So if you want to go down and pull this out, or just search on outdoor ranges. And it says, remember that most likely, the range will most likely be held responsible for damage or injury caused by any bullet or shot that escapes the shooting range, no matter what the distance the bullet has shot or traveled. And then under the main backstops may be natural hills or man-made earthworks, free of rocks and debris in a depth of 18 to 24 inches. As you'll see from some of the subsequent pictures, these backstops are all full of rocks. There is no 18 to 24 inches of clean fill for safe shooting at any of their backstops. All the surface area bullets will strike must be rock-free soil, which once again, you go out to their range, any area in front of their backstops are not rock-free soil. And shallow slopes may call for the installation of either a horizontal bullet catcher or top wall to retain occasional ricochets. And for size of the berm, except for a 50-foot range, the suggested height for a backstop is 20 feet. There's not a backstop they have out there that is 20 feet. Photo 1 is a picture from the back from Mr. Polchapek's property. You'll see in the circle to the left is the property boundary marker. Circled to the right is the back side of the 1,000-yard berm. You can see how small that berm is. I'm standing on Mr. Polchapek's property when I took that picture. Okay, so if you will not feel safe standing there when they're shooting at 1,000 yards, you cannot let them shoot there. He cannot be prohibited from the use of his property. Photo 2 is looking through the scope. This is from their Facebook page. Photo 2 is from the Gun Club's Facebook page, looking out at the targets out by the 1,000 yards. Photo 3 is actually of their 300-yard target, and all the trees you see above the dirt line is Mr. Polchapek's property. That target is right at the top of the berm. Any overshot at all at 300, 350 yards is going right into his property where he works. And the picture behind that is also from their Facebook site that's just showing him shooting up across the water, which is another no-no. You're not supposed to shoot it over and into wetlands, but that's a separate piece. Photo 4 is just a closer look at the targets and the rocks all through that area and how hard it is to hit those targets at that range. Target J is a 1,000-yard target, so all those trees you see back there in the background is Mr. Polchapek's property. Those are the targets at 1,000 yards, a half mile from where they're shooting, with rocks in the berms and no real berm at all. And the reason there's no real berm there at all is because that's a buffered wetlands area that they weren't supposed to disturb.
How'd you get that photo 5? Like if they were standing in front of the gun club property?
Yes, I took that from their Facebook site. Everything
Oh,
that's from their property site is from their Facebook site.
Okay. I
Okay?
just don't see anybody going over the wrong property.
Nope, nobody's on their property. The photo 6 shows you the locations of those. That's the clear-cut area, especially the two lower, at the bottom of the photo. That's Mr. Polchapek's property with the tree line. They put those targets right up against his property line, their shared property line. And the last one is the 750-yard range, which actually is the biggest berm that they have, but it's also from their Facebook site. Okay? The second item I'm going to cover tonight is, I won't get through much of this because I've only got 5 minutes left. This will be a complaint from me. And this is in regards to,
Is there 3 of them here or just?
nope, that's just one copy. I couldn't afford to put color copies through for all of that stuff.
Okay.
So, what this is I became aware that the building inspector cited a violation of the 2010 special permit, condition 6 for start and stop times. So I went back and looked at the other conditions under the 2010 that are all governing their continued use, of which are topography, backstop location. At the time, at 2010, there was only one at 100 yards, and also the vegetation. There's adequate vegetation to eliminate noise. So everything that you'll see here is documentation and proof, either from their Facebook posts, from Google Earth photos, of the excavations that's occurred, of the trees that have been removed. There's a forestry cutting plan with 2,500,000 board foot of lumber, 300 cords of cordwood, tons and tons of pulp were removed, just under the forest cutting plan, and that's not all that was cut out there. So clearly, if they're in violation of number 6 for start and stop times, they're in violation of at least 3 other conditions, not including the one that says that they're also required to follow all permitting requirements, and they've already been cited for a violation of not getting special permits for that expansion. Okay? So if you're going to enforce one as item number 6, then I'm saying that you need to enforce all of those, and you can't correct vegetation, you can't correct the topography that they bulldozed out there. So they need to stop shooting at once. If they're going to do a cease and desist if they shot after nightfall, after sunset, which is what his letter said, that's one of the exhibits. There is a letter he sent to the gun club last August, that if they didn't adjust their shooting hours, that they would get an immediate cease and desist for all shooting activity. Well, any of these other ones that they are also in violation of, with clear evidence of the violation, need to also be addressed with that same enforcement. And I have a few minutes left. So I would, because I had promised the group that showed up at the ZBA hearing back on January 3rd, that never happened. They were very upset that the application that was received and reviewed by, nobody signed as reviewing it, but somebody obviously had reviewed that and scheduled the ZBA hearing, which is the procedure that had to be followed, was a completely inadequate application. And once again, it focused on shooting sheds only. Nothing about the expansion, nothing about the site plan of all the expansion. So somebody sent that through. They put it in the newspaper the week of Christmas and New Year's, I'm sure in the hope that nobody would see that there was going to be a ZBA public meeting on that application. When it was brought to the ZBA's attention of how lacking that application was, obviously they contacted the gun club, and the gun club asked for additional time. But somebody failed to follow town processes in receiving that. I received it also in November. Okay, I did find that out. The town sat on that from November to the end of December, till almost a 65-day window for the ZBA to meet was expired. Which, of course, if the ZBA hadn't met in that 65 days, then they automatically would have been approved, because failure to meet would have been a conditional approval. So, once again, there's things going on here that I want on camera, okay? And it's just, the other thing I want the town to know is that I was instructed that every contact I have to make going about the gun club has to go through the town special counsel, Bacon and Wilson. I don't know what they charge you per hour, but you can expect that if you thought you had high legal bills before, that I have been directed that nobody will talk to me, and every request, even requests I sent by email, were forwarded to them and sat on for months. I submitted two complaints in October that didn't get sent to him till the end of December. Okay, and your town policy says those will be acted on promptly. So if you were not aware that those were sat on, then talk to whoever it was that sat on those, okay? And it's actually his response to those finally at the beginning of January that says if I was unhappy with the building inspector's decision about his visit in September to the gun range, that I could appeal that to the ZBA, which is where I'll be going tonight, to appeal that site visit and his conclusions about not looking at total expansion, just looking at shooting positions, to see if they're in agreement with whoever gave him that instruction. So I think I've come to the end of my 15 minutes, and so those are the main topics I had to touch on, and I hope you will act quickly, especially on the safety issue. I mean, I couldn't believe when I went to Mike's property, and I actually plan on going back out there fairly regularly, because I'm going to take my mine detector out, my metal detector out there, and I'm going to start looking for bullets on his property.
Okay.
And if bullets have left their range and had entered his property, either into trees or into the dirt, that's really going to be an issue. Because I can't see how they're not, with all the rocks and everything that's out there and the ricochets. And if you want any more, believe me, I got a lot more information than you have in that packet. If the building inspector or anyone doing this investigation wants more information, like the video of the bulldozer out there pushing dirt to make this 1,000-yard range or any of that stuff. Plus, I got shooting forum discussions of what they're doing out there and how hard it is to hit these 1,000-yard targets. It's got two different crosswinds from different directions, plus the tailwind. And it changes that bullet trajectory by up to 10 feet per shot, over 1,000 yards. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you going to give a copy of all this to the ZBA?
Not that one. I can give a copy of the safety one to the ZBA. I'm going to tell them that I came here and filed these.
Okay.
But like I said, you know, I had to refill my color ink cartridge
Well, I'm not
15 times to do this.
I'm not saying, okay.
Yeah.
Can you do me one favor?
Sure.
All the highlighting you did on yours, can you do this for me on mine that you gave me? Or you don't have the time, so I can read it? If you don't have the time,
If you have a highlighter, I don't have a highlighter on me.
I come prepared.
Yep, I can do highlighting on yours.
Okay, and then I'll make sure I can read it exactly.
And if, I'll wait till breaking the thing later and
Yeah,
get it back.
whatever you.
Yeah, I got time.
Okay,
Next meeting is until 6:30.
okay, didn't know.
Planning board. This has to do with
February 4th meeting.
February 14th?
4th,
4th.
town meeting and pulling of Article 1.
About the actions they're gonna take.
Good afternoon.
Colton.
About the actions they're gonna take. Morning. Oh, good afternoon. Oh, I think the board is, well, I guess we're under the impression that you're gonna be taking some actions about February 4th. And we're just curious, you know, if there's gonna be discussing that.
I guess we're, I'm not going to speak for the whole board. This is a discussion of both of our boards. What exactly is it you're looking, what are the concerns with these solar farms?
The problem is this, Jim, okay? Back in 2012, when we wanted to become a green community, DOER stated we had to put in a section in the bylaws for large-scale ground-mounted solar arrays. As a result of that, and what they've seen occurring, they have now changed the guidelines that they believe the zoning bylaws should indicate in the situating of these large-scale units, okay? They recommended that a moratorium be put in place to give you time to be able to review their new guidelines and to allow you to implement and change the existing bylaws to go with the current, what they would like to see current. What they've seen happening is a lot of clear cutting. Somebody will come in and put a 146-acre site in, and they clear cut all the trees out. Now, the problem with that is, you know, there's been some discussion that has issues with stormwater management, groundwater, you know, pollution, everything that can go, possibly go along,
Yeah, we typically look at all that.
okay?
Go ahead, you finish.
No, go ahead. You can go ahead.
So to date, this has been in effect since, what, 7 years now?
2012, I think, is when we did ours.
Okay, so
Yeah,
about
yeah,
7 years.
well,
The planning board has approved 2 large-scale solar fields. One has been installed on East Street.
It's 5.
Well, it's one, they broke them up because it was all the separate parcels. But it was basically, they broke it up into 3, but it was actually one applicant. And so there was minimal clear cutting on that one. The other one that was just approved last week, I believe it was.
The second round.
Was the, yeah, actually, it was amended, was on Dickinson Farm. There was no clear cutting there.
yeah, because that was farmland.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have one more before us. I can't get into too much detail on it right now, but that's on Kendall Street. There is a clear cutting plan for that. They had drainage issues. We hired a peer review to review it, made some corrections. But other than that, that's all we have before us. As far as the clear cutting goes, you know, one of the issues I take up with it is you can clear cut for a lot of other reasons that this bylaw for the moratorium won't address. You can clear cut for a gravel pit, you can clear cut for farming, subdivisions. So, you know, I don't feel comfortable, again, I'm not speaking for the whole board, but I just don't feel comfortable singling out one industry. And one of the upsides of this is some of this property that they're putting the solar fields on is coming out of chapter, was it 61A
61B.
or 61B? So that
Whichever
yeah,
section it is.
yeah. So that puts it back on the tax.
Well, the problem we're having is there's been recent cases brought in front of the appellate tax board that these pilot agreements that are being negotiated, the appellate tax board is citing that they're just like the regular utility companies and they're tax exempt.
But the property's not. See, they're only leasing the property.
But the issue is we expect to get money by allowing this generating facility to be located in the town through a pilot agreement, payment of the tax. If the appellate tax board is saying those are no longer valid, the $500,000 that we could get over a 20-year period or more potentially based upon the size, we won't get that money. We won't realize that money.
If the state has developed guidelines, and they are only guidelines.
Yes, they are.
So I have 2 questions. Number 1, why doesn't the state make them laws instead of guidelines? And number 2, why doesn't the state close the loophole in the taxes?
We have asked our legislatures, and there is a bill going in front of the legislator when the next session starts
Okay.
to close the tax loophole.
Okay, so that will be potentially
Hopefully,
addressed.
hopefully,
Potentially.
hopefully.
Number 3, we have to remember Granby is a farming community, always was a farming community. A lot of the land that you see trees on now was either pasture land or farmland. Okay, this is basically immature growth. The only places in town that you had trees, of large stands of trees, were the mountain areas that the farmers weren't farming. Back into the 40s and 50s. So, it's not much different.
Well, the meeting that Lil and I went, when they put forward the new regulation, I believe it was 26 November of 2018, and we went to a briefing prior to that release. And just for general information, a week after they released their regulations, they got over 2,500 permits for solar in the first week. And if you do it by 351 cities and towns, that means everybody, municipality is going to get 7.3 new solar farms. Caitlin Kelly is the point of contact on the solar program for the state. And she explained to us that they have their guidelines, but they're not going to mess with the town guidelines. They're going to let each community govern themselves, okay? And as Chris stated, to put a moratorium into effect so everybody can do it. One of the big things in the Mass DOER guidelines, regulations, they completely discourage the cutting of trees. The reason being, the solar panels are only part of the climate change that we're going through. I'm not a scientist. These are the people in Boston that write up all this stuff. Right now, we have an excess amount of carbon in our air. These solar farms that are going in will only stop or reduce the fossil fuel usage. But the solar farms is not going to get rid of the excess carbon in the air. That has to be done through trees and natural vegetation. That is why they're strongly discouraging the cutting of any trees or any foliage, because we already have excess carbon. And you can go to the International Panel of Climate Change, which is United Nations, and they're putting this out all over the world, not just in Granby and not just in Massachusetts. The air is polluted, just like when we went through the special town meeting when we talked about stormwater. EPA says that's polluted water once it becomes stormwater, because it could have fertilizers, could have feces, could have anything in it. It's considered polluted water. That's why you guys look at the stormwater runoff. You have to look at air the same way.
That is not necessarily why we look at the stormwater runoff. We look at it as runoff.
Yes.
For erosion.
And as going on somebody else's property and disturbing their property.
Right, but we're not looking at the contaminants or anything else.
If you're not, I mean, that's up to you, but I'm just telling you that right now, Mass DOER and everybody else is saying they discourage the cutting of trees because we need the vegetation to get rid of the excess carbon in the air. And putting the solar panels by cutting down trees is counterproductive. If on Dickinson's, there were no trees. There's no problems with putting it out there.
To refer to the list you came out with, which
Yep.
where this came from, because nobody's been before our board, on Lion Street, School Street, Taylor Street, West Street, and East Street.
Well, Lion Street, you have the application for.
Right.
Yeah, you do.
We do have the one
We
for
do,
Lion Street?
that's
Yeah, it's Red Rock.
Red Rock.
That's Red Rock.
okay,
We're having
okay,
March
okay,
4th.
That's Red Rock.
Okay, so,
West Street Solar Farm is bypassing you guys and going to Conservation Committee tonight. Okay, the Taylor Street was brought up by Dave Randall here at the public forum himself.
and
He's having a-
these are basically all open areas. East Street, West Street, and, well, Taylor Street's his Christmas tree farm, which is a field.
All that is a list of current,
They're not all current, because the only one that's before us is Red Rock, that's on that list.
if you look back to what it says pending or being considered.
By who?
The owners, they contacted. Craig
it
from.
doesn't mean anything until the application's been filed with us.
Oh, yeah, then why is West Street Solar going before the Conservation Committee tonight?
But it hasn't gone before us.
I didn't say it did go before.
And when it goes before the planning board, it's by special permit,
I agree.
which
As long as
gives,
it's large-scale ground slope.
which allows the planning board to scrutinize and review the plans and determine whether or not it's any detriment to the surrounding or the abutters.
I'd agree with
So,
that.
and then we back up again, if we're gonna be picking on solar, for these farmers to be able to do something with this open land they have, then what do we do with developments, subdivisions?
You
What
do the
we
same thing. You use your subdivision bylaws for your subdivisions. You have the right to farm in Granby by the bylaws and the general
That's right.
bylaws.
So they'll be able to clear cut land to put a subdivision in, or to farm it, or to put a gravel pit in, if you will. But you just can't do it, you just can't do it for solar. It doesn't, to me, that's not a legitimate reason to single out one.
If you're doing subdivision for housing, you're doing it to give people a place to live. If you're doing it for farming, you're doing it to give people something to eat.
And
If you're doing it for solar, they've already declared it's counterproductive to cut down trees that need to remove the excess carbon that is already in our atmosphere.
Well, I think that's based on what study you listened to on that. We'll go back to, Jim, you talked about some of the areas that are being presented. Those are open fields. So you have, for instance, maybe a farmer in town, 20 years ago decided, I'm not gonna keep up the property anymore, I'm gonna let it go. So what happens? Things grow, trees grow and stuff like that. Fast forward to now, 20 years, 25 years later, there's a bunch of trees and everything grown in. Now, we don't want to tell him he can't bring it back to what it was 20, 25 years ago, was an open field. And at that time, if he would have kept it as an open field, at that time, then he could put solar panels on. Hang on, Jay.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from, I know from where I lived there for the past 20 some odd years, that at one time in Amber Street, I could look up and see the back of Cold Hill completely, the people's backyards and everything like that. Today, I cannot. I can probably look probably 200 feet in my backyard before the trees start, and after that, the trees are 25, 30, 40 feet high. I can't see Cold Hill at all anymore. Even the house is up there anymore, even when this time of the year when the trees are bare. So my thing, that's 20 years. So going back, how does that impact a landowner? I'm just trying to look at how we being fair to that point. Where at that time, it was an open field 20 years ago, but besides that person who owns the land decided not to do anything with it and just let it all grow in. Now he has the opportunity to, make revenue off it and decides to do this. We're looking to step in and say, no, you can't clear cut that property.
Number one, if the land is not being used for farming anymore, excuse me, then it should be reclassified to either the residential or whatever. Instead of paying.
That's not the question I posed.
And a lot of land is residential.
Residential land is
My
paying,
property was farmed.
okay,
All the taxes are residential.
that's in your case, that's not in every case.
No, but you're making it sound like it's in
No,
every
I'm
case.
just, he is telling me
As
about a
Glenn
farm.
just said.
He's telling me about a farm.
As Glenn just said, who are we to tell the property owner what to do with their property when this is allowed by right?
When you go to the bylaws, it tells you what the people have decided would be done in the town. The people who vote the bylaws in.
The people that have voted the large-scale solar
Right.
project, and
How about the people that put the fence in? You can't have a fence 3 feet from your property line. They're putting bylaws in all the time. We got a whole group of general bylaws coming up again for review.
It seems to me that we're listening to a single drummer of this, if you will, petition.
I would go back to the IPCC, and they are saying that we have excess carbon in our air. And the Mass DOER strongly discourages the removal of any trees. The state has given any structure the right to have solar, by right. But they have not given large-scale solar ground-mounted by right.
Bill, are you aware of any of that?
I haven't seen those changes yet. no.
Okay. Bill Scanlon is our Pioneer Valley Planning Commissioner.
By the state by right, any roof-mounted solar is allowed by right, regardless of size. Small and medium ground-mounted solar is allowed by right. The state has given that. The state has withheld the large-scale ground-mounted solar. That has to be done by special permit only. And that's according to Mass DOER and the Massachusetts general laws. 40,000 square feet or more, 250 kW or more require a special permit. That's considered a large-scale ground-mounted solar. That's when the state first came out with their regulations, which I believe was in 2014. And that's what they were looking at, large-scale ground-mounted solar. And take Ware, for instance. The guy's going in there and he wants to put a 140-acre solar farm in there. That's 140 times more than the state originally planned.
Isn't the town of Ware being sued? And the planning board members being sued as well?
There is a legal thing because they have generic bylaws like Granby. The answer is yes.
It's not legal. They're being sued for
Being
answering
arbitrary-
outside their scope.
Arbitrary and
Yeah.
capricious, if I'm not.
The town of Roll was sued and the solar company dropped the suit.
Well, I can't, I can tell you, you use Ware as an example. I'm just saying, if
I'm
they're
just
being
saying.
sued and that has not been dropped, so.
That is the reason for the moratorium, to put, the people will put their appropriate bylaws into place to protect the planning board and the town, so the town does not get sued.
So why can't we, as boards together, draft, or the planning board draft new bylaws without a moratorium in place?
For one thing, if you looked at the handout, there, besides zoning bylaws, there was also general bylaws in there. An example of a general bylaw was to limit the number of large-scale ground-mounted solar. That's general. It's got nothing to do with zoning. And that's in...
That wasn't my question, Jay. I said, why can't we look at those things without putting a moratorium in place? And there's no guarantee, even, so, a couple of things I want to mention too. There's no guarantee the town would have been in favor of the moratorium or against the moratorium at that point. There's another thing that's true to the fact, that when a moratorium is passed, it also goes to the Attorney General's office to be approved. So there's no guarantee that moratorium would have been approved either.
And no guarantee you'll be denied either.
I understand that. So I'm saying there's steps that are these are some of the things that we're talking about are what ifs. But I'm saying, why can't we get together now and really put forward, if we have concerns with bylaws and for the future of Granby, let's start looking at bylaws and come up with new bylaws that are going to be effective, and then bring those to the town body and let them vote on it, let them decide what they want.
And to answer to that, the select board themselves voted for the moratorium back in December of 2018. Why do we have to wait to ask that question in February of 2019? If this board promoted to go forward and put the public hearing in, put the special town meeting in, why are we hearing those questions from the select board now when we voted to put it forward in December and spend the taxpayers' money to do it?
Those are questions I posed back in December when the vote came to this board.
You
And
voted for it.
I voted no.
No, you voted
I
for...
voted no for moratorium. As you say, Jay, GCAM doesn't lie. I voted no against the moratorium because at that time
Then I will
wanted-
review GCAM, but I was to my
Please
knowledge.
do. And you can check our minutes as well. And I voted no because I wanted more information brought forward as to how this would impact our town, everybody in our town, and was there a need to do it now, or is that something that could wait? Were there other avenues we could use for that instead of doing a moratorium? Because my personal opinion, sitting on the board, I thought it was unfair to put a moratorium in place because the bylaws were too vague that were passed back in 2012. So I thought we should get together at that point. Again, my point is why I voted no at that time for the moratorium was to get additional information, to put things forward, so we had a better understanding of what it was about.
The moratorium, all it does, it puts a gate there that says if you permit anything lawfully, it could be subject to any changes the people vote on. That's what the moratorium does. It says it could be. The people may not approve any changes to the bylaws, or they may put it in. You're saying no to put a moratorium in, so you're allowing the solar applicants to do what they want, while the people have to wait.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
That's not true. We have a body that oversees that, what they can do. We have bylaws, we have a body such as the planning board that oversees what they can and can't do as far as just putting it in. They can't just say, we're going through all this, and we're gonna knock down this, cut down this, we're gonna do this. No, there's things, there's a special permit, there's a peer review to make sure things are done correctly. There's a lot of different steps that take place before a solar project is approved.
Don't forget, I used to be on the planning board. I've approved solar projects on the planning board before.
I understand that, Jay, I understand
The
that.
process.
I know the process, and I know the process what Boston recommended, and that's why we presented it here, and by a majority vote, if you want to put it that way, we voted to go forward with the moratorium, with the public hearing, and you were at the public hearing, sitting right here, and you didn't have anything to say, and then all of a sudden, at the last moment, minutes before the special town meeting kicks off, all of a sudden, we got to come things to a grounding halt.
It's not coming, I voiced my opinion when it came between this board.
And you-
Okay?
okay.
No, hear me out, Jay.
Yeah.
The board voted to move forward with it, okay?
That's fine.
So at that point, I'm part of the board, I'm gonna go along with the board's decision at that time. I'm not gonna keep on disagreeing with the board as we move forward, because the board made a decision acting as a board.
Well,
When
it seems to me on 4 February, you disagree with the board.
it came up to another vote, and I, again, voted the same way I voted back in December.
Okay, on
The
four-
difference now, Jay, is that you had someone else on the board who felt different this time, who voted the other way.
On 4 February, when we adjourned the selectmen's meeting, I do not know of any motion to cancel Article 1. I do not know of any second to cancel Article 1. I was just told you were not going to present it. And I said, what?
You did not vote no?
I voted no when Chris asked me. He says, Jay, do you want to stop Article 1? I said, no.
Well, because there was a
Did-
motion, because there was a motion on the table at that
I
point.
never heard a motion. I never heard a discussion.
There was a motion that was brought forward. It was second.
Who
and
brought the motion forward?
I believe it was, Steve, was it you? I can't, I'm not positive. I think either I seconded it or Steve seconded it. But it was brought forward at that time.
But the select board meeting had already been adjourned.
No, it did not.
Yes, it is. We had adjourned.
We did not adjourn, Jay.
I'm afraid if you look at the meeting
Check
minutes,
the minutes.
we adjourned. And it wasn't until 20 minutes later or so that all of a sudden it was reconvened. And I have no idea why it was reconvened. I don't know about any posting for a second meeting.
I don't know, it was 20 minutes later, Jay, because I got there probably about 6:30, and the town meeting started at 7.
Well, it only took us like 5 minutes to do it. All it was appointing one person to the ZBA because one person had bad health and had to get off. That was the entire agenda for 4 February.
But back to my original thing, what I was saying, I think as two boards of this town, we could figure things out to put bylaws in effect, or actually present bylaws to the town to see what they want to do.
Oh, I agree with that.
So-
I mean, we're not going to decide, the town's going to decide. The only question is, do you want to give the townspeople a chance to make their decisions before things are allowed to proceed? I say give the town people a chance.
They gave you a chance once already. They already voted to approve.
Again, and that's that, it was, sorry, Jim, you're making it sound like everybody in the town is totally against solar fields.
I'm not saying that. I said
Well,
the
you are.
people decide.
Well, but I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, so I think the voting people in Granby have put people in place on certain boards and certain committees by electing them to do the right thing and do their job. So again, I don't, to me, I don't think, as I said, a moratorium was the right thing at the right time.
Well, if you go back to the handout, one of the big things that we were looking to do, besides the general bylaws, was also consider the Granby Municipal Electric Company, which we're allowed to do under state law. To
Okay,
do that, we had to put the general bylaw in place to establish the regulations under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 164, Section 134.
that doesn't make a big difference whether it was done on February 4th or it's done in May.
If you don't put the utilities in place, you cannot make the people who produce the utilities regulated by the utility.
So, for instance, we have 2 approved solar farms in town right now.
As far as I know, we have 5 through Kearsarge, because they're all listed as
Well,
separate.
It's one, but
If you want to call it one, if it's 5 by
It is
Kearsarge.
one, Jay. It's one company. It's one particular area they did. It happened to be in 5 different lots because that was the way that property was set up. That's all. And that's the old property that houses were bought from.
I know where it is on
Right,
East
so
Street.
that's, again.
And then
that's two
Dickinson
things.
Street went through, Dickinson's Farm went through.
Right, so that's the 2 that have been approved.
Right. So we've met the green community requirements. There's nothing in the green community that says you have to have unlimited solar for
But I'm
large
not
scale.
saying that, but
the
there's,
town never said that there was gonna be a moratorium back in 2012 on how many were gonna be put in.
The town nor the state did not know the size of the solar farms created by these solar developers today would ever reach the scale that they reach today. In 2012, they didn't know the state of the air that we're breathing today is that much
you're
carbon.
speculating, Jay. You don't know what they.
No, I think you should read the IPCC from the United Nations.
Again, but you're
report.
speculating what they knew and didn't know back then. I'm not here to argue with you, Jay. I'm just saying that as far as, looking at things as far as representing a town, okay? Personally, I wouldn't want a solar farm that I have to look at. But on the other hand, I understand that people have the right to do it.
And that's all I'm
hear
saying,
me
give
out,
the
Jay.
people the right.
Hear me out, Jay. I also have a neighbor who lives right next to me, has 4 acres of land. If he decides I'm gonna start farming that, I'm gonna start having cows and other livestock on my property, he can do that, right?
If he files the appropriate,
He
yes.
can do that, because he has a right to farm.
That's what I said
I can't do
before.
anything about, so for many years, I sat in my backyard and enjoyed my pool and stuff like that. But now I have to smell maybe cow manure and stuff like that. I can't do anything about that. I hear what people are saying. I'm just saying that we can look at it, come up with bylaws. We don't, as a board, put things together and move forward on it.
Well, I think as 2 boards, we represent the people. We don't represent
Well,
the applicants.
Let me, just for a minute. The people we represent are also the landowners of these properties.
I didn't say they weren't.
Okay, well,
I just said we represent the people. I didn't pick anybody in particular.
go ahead, Bob.
Let us also remember, this is the first time that the select board has met with the planning board regarding any of this. We've been kept out of the loop until we got that letter from Steve.
I'm sorry you were not.
Signed by Steve.
Sorry you were
It was,
not. This is,
January 7th letter asking you to put the moratorium. Have you addressed it at your meetings?
this was public knowledge as of
I'm just asking
December.
about this.
No, we have not.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Well, we've discussed it, but we have not put a moratorium or discussed it, or voted to put a moratorium. There has been discussion on it.
Or the
It hasn't
parameters.
fallen on
Yes.
deaf ears.
Okay.
This has been on the table since the select board voted to go with the moratorium back in December of 2000.
Okay, so
That
why-
is
why did-
public
why did- Why
knowledge.
didn't that stick?
It did. We had to wait the time limit to post the public hearing, then we had to wait the time limit to post the special town meeting.
Why wasn't the planning board included?
Seeing it's a zoning issue.
We were looking at the general bylaws and the regulatory part
Not on the
of,
first, not on the first.
those are all examples the Energy Committee put together. Those are just examples of what people
No,
have
the
done.
first moratorium was a zoning moratorium. No hearing, there was no hearing. You, 3 of you sat here and voted on it.
I
Prior
don't
to a
do
hearing.
cards of being just for zoning. It was general, zoning,
Well, take
and regulatory.
that up with town council, because he feels otherwise.
Well, I'll take it up with town council, because I didn't like the way he handled the whole town meeting as it is, the way it went. I have no problem with that.
A question, the January 7th letter to the planning board was a draft zoning article. Was that intended to be a formal submission to the planning board to have a public hearing on the proposed zoning amendment? If it was, then the planning board is bound to have a public hearing and bring the article forward to town meeting. If it was just a suggestion, the board needs to know whether, it was a formal submission or not.
I think it was a submission of, are they planning on,
Working in dealing with things.
Okay.
Because I turn around and I'm asking some questions so we know how to proceed with them.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
If I recall from that, Bill, the letter was drafted with the exact language that was put on the moratorium for the general and the regulatory, because town council recommended it. And that's why the exact language was put into that letter.
That was a zoning amendment.
Right.
Proposed zoning amendment.
Yeah, but the town council was the one that recommended that we do it in addition to. So we were just following the rules. Correct, Chris? So we've done everything according to what we're supposed to by Massachusetts general law.
Right, so
That's what we did.
My interpretation is that unless you say otherwise, the board has to accept that as a formal request to amend zoning bylaw.
According to the town attorney, the answer was yes.
Okay.
And we were just following what the town attorney said. Because, I mean, it's public knowledge with GCAM on here right now, what we're doing. And when this tape is ended, everything we do is signed, sealed, and delivered in public knowledge.
Well, it was
So-
the same town attorney that had asked us and kind of explained to us how to proceed at the town meeting.
I-
And again, and I look as myself as a board,
As a member of the board, I listened to what the town council was telling me. Because I don't, and referring to the town council, hoping all the information he is providing to us is accurate. And I need to assume that information that he is provided is accurate to me. So at that time, and I know a lot of people at that meeting were frustrated by the outcome and some of the information that they could have been given at that meeting. But again, it's based on the information, and again, I'm speaking to myself, because listen to what the town council said at the time, sitting up there, he advised against it. And I don't know if it left us open to liability or what it may have left us up to,
Well,
but he advised against it, so adheres to that. I listened to what he said.
I don't know what the town council said.
Let Chris address it.
All right. First off, when the moratorium was implemented by the Board of Selectmen in the general bylaws, proposed general bylaw amendment, from day one, there was always a question. Does general bylaw trump zoning bylaw, or does zoning bylaw trump general bylaw? Because the issue is we could create a moratorium in the general bylaws. However, when you're applying for a special permit, zoning bylaws are 40A rules, okay? So that was the basic crux of the issue. When I had talked with the moderator that day, and I had talked with you, Jim, a little bit, the procedure that I felt was the best to follow would be to allow the motion to be presented, the discussion to be presented, and then immediately a motion would be put on the floor to postpone the article indefinitely. That would have made it a debatable motion in front of town meeting. Wouldn't have had town meeting members wondering why it was pulled with no explanation, but it could have been debated whether to proceed or not at that point. By withdrawing the motion, as town council said, there is no motion to debate. There is no motion to discuss. There is no motion to give an explanation of why it was pulled. That's where he was coming from, under town meeting time. If we had followed the other procedure, that motion to postpone indefinitely would have been a debatable motion that could have been addressed by town meeting to see whether we wanted to proceed with this moratorium or not. That's where we failed. And we failed town meeting totally on that part.
I agree on that, because I think we left a lot of people wondering what would happen. And I
Yes.
agree. And, again, for someone that was sitting up there, I felt the same way, because if I was sitting on the other side of the table, if you will, I definitely know I would have felt the same way, wondering what just happened, why things being explained to me. But as could someone at that point on the town floor brought that up for discussion? Could a motion have been made at that
because
point
there was no motion
at all?
put out there. It was withdrawn.
Okay.
Article 1 didn't exist at that point in time in town council eyes,
Okay.
okay? Where if we had allowed it to be presented, Jay to make his presentation, and then immediately put a motion to postpone indefinitely, that becomes a debatable motion. There was nothing on town meeting floor to debate at that point in time.
And to this day, I have not been really told on why it was pulled.
Because from the information that we received from town council, as Chris just stated, whether or not it was a general bylaw or was a zoning bylaw based on chapter 48 of the state general laws,
And the handout had both.
okay? So his concern, and as it was relayed to me, this could be an issue going forward. So instead of letting it be an issue, possibility, again, town council saying this could be an issue moving forward, taking that into consideration, do I want to move forward with something that can be an issue? Or do we step back at that point and fix it and make it right?
Then why wasn't it explained to the entire select board what was going on? Because none of this was explained to me at all. I was just told, you are not presenting Article 1. That's it. I never saw a motion, I never saw a second, and there was definitely no discussion.
Well, Jay, it was sitting there. You had Steve and myself and you. A discussion was taking place, okay?
Not with me, it wasn't, because nobody asked me a question,
Okay,
except it told me,
Jay,
you're not presenting
Jay,
it.
Okay, I understand. You were sitting at the table, just like I was, and Chris was there, and Steve was there as well. I can't speak for what you heard and didn't hear. I was paying attention to what was being said.
Okay, then I'll ask Mr. Martin, did you hear anything about a discussion or a motion or anything?
I was, all right. At 6:30, we called the meeting to order. We did the ZBA appointment to replace the chairman, who had resigned due to health issues. The meeting was adjourned at 6:31.
Yeah, very quick.
Then I was poked by Chairman Chinaki, because he happened to be next to me, stating that the meeting was reconvened. Okay? And that the Article 1 was going to be withdrawn. That's what I was told. That's why I asked you, Jay, do you agree to withdraw Article 1?
And I says,
And you
withdraw
said-
it? I said, no. So we're gonna go ahead as advertised at the special town meeting.
Because, as I said, I was under the impression from early in the day that we had, the moderator had set it up to allow it to be presented, and then have that motion to postpone.
Which I had no knowledge of at that point in time. It was
But
just-
that was the presumption I was under, the moderator was under, going into the meeting. And I'm just saying that to you,
Yeah,
Glenn,
yeah.
okay? And
No, I
then
understand
at
that.
6:56, I'm told that is being withdrawn. So,
And again, as I said, a discussion has taken place, and Steve, myself, and we're sitting this close, if not, actually, we're probably sitting closer together up there, Jay. And I can't, I don't know if you didn't hear part of the conversation. I can't speak to that. I know I was listening to what was being said and interacting in on it, so I'm not saying it. But you say, like, well, I wasn't part of that. But
I
can't
wasn't.
speak. Well, but I can't speak that, Jay, because you were there, and I understand that. But again, I was sitting there as well. And I was interacting conversations.
I just found out basically today about what Mr. Martin had written and planned to do for it. I didn't know about that until he told me. The other day, he told me, he says, we should have done this and should have done that. Well, nobody has ever told me. And now, this is what, February the 19th, and we did this on February the 4th, and I'm just finding out about it?
How do you sit in his office on a daily basis
I
and
don't
not ask
sit-
those questions?
I don't sit in his office on a daily basis. You
I do know, yes, I do,
Yeah,
because
but
that's
I
my
don't-
job.
I don't sit on it.
But
I
you
come
sit
in-
in his
Folks,
office.
we're not getting an argument about stuff. I mean,
I'm not.
What I'm
I-
trying to
no.
do here is really is move forward, and as
That's why I've
I
asked them.
understand, and I think we, as far as not letting the public know at the town meeting, yeah, definitely a mistake. There's no doubt about it, and I agree. But again, like I said, at that point in time, I was listening to what town council was saying to me.
It was on your end of the table.
Jay, you were sitting right next to me, more nor a foot next to me. I'm not gonna argue it. I'm not gonna debate it. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm looking to move forward, try to make things right. One thing for I think a lot of the voters, or a lot of town people that are some were dissatisfied what occurred. I'm definitely trying to move forward. The planning board is here tonight. We're trying to put have some discussions in regards to bylaws moving forward. If we do everything right, and we can probably get the bylaws in by our town meeting in May. So this could be all said and squared away by May. We could bring it to the town floor in May and let the people of Granby decide what they want to do.
And in the meantime, some solar farms could be lawfully permitted because we don't have a moratorium in effect.
No, they're
How would that be
lawfully,
unlawful?
they're lawfully permitted, 'cause we do have a bylaw in effect. It may not be something you agree with. We have bylaws in effect that's for solar farms.
I'm saying if a moratorium went into effect today,
If,
that's what I said, if.
Right.
I used the word if.
I know.
If a moratorium went into effect today, they would be subject to any bylaw changes that the people of the town would make. If the people of the town made no changes, then there'd be no difference. If the people of the town made changes, then there would be a difference.
So here we are in middle of February, March, April, 3 months from now, we have the ability to bring something to the town floor and let the town vote on it, what they want to do to change the bylaws.
And-
There's no moratorium in place, it's impact, it's changed the bylaws are sent off to the Attorney General, that office will approve or disapprove at that point, moving forward. So I mean, we can argue all about this all day long and what happened, what didn't
Mr.
happen,
Chair.
but
I don't mean to interrupt you, Glenn. Can I just ask a question? How long does it take the planning board to do a permitting process for a solar farm?
Depends. Depends whether it needs a peer review, it depends on the size of it, the location, the...
Average time, Jim. Fast, give me a fast track one.
A fast track one, probably, well, we've only done 2, so we're probably talking 6, maybe 8 months.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that question, under 40A, I believe that when a zoning bylaw change is being proposed, unless you have an actual permit issued prior to a bylaw change being advertised, then you cannot issue a permit pending town meeting either approval or disapproval of said bylaw change. So, if you're saying it takes 3 to 4 months, okay, at the quickest, 3 to 4 months, say, okay? Everything's in order, everything lines right up, the gods are in alignment, so on and so forth. Then, we're talking 3 months to go to a town meeting. You'll be advertising the bylaw change when? April? End of March, beginning of April?
Yeah.
So unless they have a permit within the next 60 or 45 days, chances are they won't be able to get a permit until a proposed bylaw change is addressed by town meeting and then subsequently approved by AG's office.
Because as soon as it's advertised in the paper, then
So
that's it.
all I'm saying, it could be a moot point at this point, as long as the planning board is addressing the January 7th letter of the Board of Selectmen asking that a new section under 5.99 be brought forth to town meeting.
And now, in regards to that letter,
so it's asking the, or directing, I guess, asking the planning board to act on it. So what the planning board decides to act on doesn't necessarily mean bylaw changes, right? They're asked to look at it and address it,
Yeah, we are asking you,
to look and address that.
we are asking you to create a new zoning bylaw. I think it was 5.99.12 or something like that. Isn't that what I? 1.3. 1.3, I'm sorry. I was off one number. I'm sorry.
Pretty good.
So basically, we're asking you to consider creating a moratorium section under the large-scale ground-mounted solar array bylaw section of the zoning bylaw.
Moratorium or new bylaws?
We're looking for a moratorium so you could have time to consider your new bylaws.
In the moratorium for the May town meeting?
Yes.
That's all we were asking for in the
Yes.
beginning.
No, I don't think so. I think you went to special town meeting.
Yeah.
For a moratorium.
With a
That's
general,
correct.
that was a general.
General.
But bylaws could be put in place for the town meeting in May, and we wouldn't have to do a moratorium. We get,
Yeah.
Time-wise, we can move forward with our public meetings, public hearings, get input from the public and move forward.
Because right now, we cannot move forward with the general bylaws, which is purview of the select board. We cannot move forward without the town's permission for the Granby Municipal Electric Company without their permission because it's never been presented yet.
Again, we still have bylaws in place.
But we have to ask them permission to do certain things. That's why we have to go to special town meetings and your annual town meeting. That was the whole purpose for going to a special town meeting.
But we have solar array.
I'm not talking that. I'm talking general.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm talking general bylaws and municipal electric or utilities.
We have not had an issue with any of the solar stuff until it developed right here in this room back in December.
We were briefed in November.
Jay, you've already told us all this. We don't need to hear it again.
Well, that's fine.
And there's guidelines by the state. Why doesn't the state set up rules, regulations?
Because they wanted to leave it up to the individual.
Why are they even sticking their nose into the town of Granby, town of Ware, anywhere else's business?
They're not.
Well, apparently they are.
They're giving you the guidelines that each municipality can use. And they spelled out those guidelines. Caitlin Kelly is the point of contact from Mass DOE. Lil was right there with me.
I don't care who is in attendance.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Would it benefit the planning board members to forward those proposed guidelines tomorrow so you can look at it at your next meeting
Sure.
and then go forward from there?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Because Belchertown right now is ready to
I
do
don't
this.
care about Belchertown.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about Granby.
I would like to talk about Granby.
Just one more point there. I know you've got other business to take care of. What were you talking about a municipal electric company?
Yep.
Why don't you elaborate on that for us, please?
It's Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 164, Article 134, the same as the town of Chicopee, Westfield, and South Hadley uses when they generate electricity and their other utilities off of water. Since it's being generated in our community now, we are allowed to regulate it. And we can put
What you
it,
can do, Jim, is this.
Yeah, spell that out for me.
What he's trying to do is create a municipal electric department.
Mhm.
By allowing these solar companies to come in, that as part of the approval, they have to give 10% of their power generation to the town for availability to its residents under a municipal aggregation program. So that someone can sign up and say, yes, I want to get the savings from the solar on my electric bill. You can opt in, opt out, however you want to do
Would
it.
the town have to hire someone to oversee that?
Well, no, it's a town administrator, don't you know that?
And again, I mean,
But-
things seem that, oh, that'd be nice, but if the town's gonna attach another dollar figure to it for an employee or something like that, that's,
no. No.
So let me
It's
ask-
the same thing we're doing with Kearsarge right now. The town buildings have 90% solar electricity, okay, off of Kearsarge. It was negotiated with them that the town would receive the electricity from the solar farm for the municipal buildings at 20% below the national grid rate.
Which is a great point you just made, Jay, is
That's right.
saying that how solar in our town is benefiting our town.
Yes.
It's saving the
But
taxpayers
the
money
pilot-
from electricity.
But that's what we're looking to do. But the pilot agreements, according to the State Appellate Tax Bureau, are no longer allowed. So you can't do it.
Our agreement's been null and void?
Kearsarge has not gone in front of appellate tax board
Okay.
yet.
If they do, the answer would be yes. They would be considered pre-existing.
So if I understand this correctly, we set up a municipal electric company,
Yeah.
if you will. 10% of the proceeds go to the taxpayers in Granby.
Whatever's negotiated, yes.
Power
What it would be,
generation,
what we're
yes.
doing, Bob, is saying, okay, like the town takes 90% of its power. We get 100% credit on our electric bill from National Grid. We pay Kearsarge 80% of the National Grid rate, basically saving us 20% on our electric bill. What you can do under the solar laws and municipal utility laws and that is we can create an electric department for solar aggregation for our residents and businesses. They could opt in and say, yeah, I want to be able to buy 100% of my power from Kearsarge or
Whoever it is.
XYZ
Yeah.
ABC company. We have a pool of 1 million megawatts that we can do out. You opt in, you want to be part of this. We notify National Grid, they turn around and give you the 100% credit. We then would have to bill or somehow find a way of getting you to pay the 80% factor
Which
to
is all-
save your 20% on your
Just
bill.
like the town of
So,
Ashland.
so if I understand this correctly, the residents of the town of Granby could potentially see some savings in their
Yes.
pockets
And benefit.
and benefit.
Yes.
So, and the more solar we have, the better, potentially. Going on that, and you know where I'm going, Chris.
I know exactly where you're
If all
going.
of a sudden we're regulating the size of these things, then we're cutting our own pockets.
No, we're just letting the bylaws of the people go forward, and at the same time, we would talk to these companies coming in that is allowed to develop solar in here.
I think all you want to do, Bob, is not make it where 202 becomes solar field next to solar field next to solar field next to solar field. Spread them out amongst the town a little bit. Right now, there's nothing to stop that.
No. And right,
Actually, the only thing that stops it is the size of the wire in front of the lot.
that is correct.
So I guess what happens, and 3 years down the road,
The town of Granby has got a lot of property that they wish to put solar panels on, where it directly impact the town. Because the town owns the property at that point, so the town would be leasing the property, they were receiving revenue from it. And as Jay, you mentioned some time ago, there are some good sizable pieces of land in Granby that could be utilized.
And we're looking at more and the energy.
Hear me out, Jay. That can be utilized for these type of solar farms. So, you know, and again, it's not my view, it's just up to the people of Granby to decide what we want to do. But reality is, if you start regulating it to the point where you can't allow certain things, that actually could impact the town of Granby. Another way, saying we have, 50 acres of land that is feasible that you could use for a solar farm, but no, you can't, because based on our bylaws, we can't take advantage of that now.
That's not really true. The bylaws are the voice of the people on what they
How
want.
can that be
The-
true, though?
It is. They can-
How's it good for one, but not good for the other?
It's the people, well, if you want to appeal a bylaw, you go to the ZBA. That's why it's set up.
I know, but I'm just saying, as far as some of the town property that's owned.
That's right. I'm just saying, that's what he's talking about.
But I'm saying but the town property is available to be used for it. But if we say, no, you can't, as I'm saying, there's both sides to an argument. And
And if
both
you-
sides might sometimes make very good arguments against why not to have something.
And if you don't get your existing utility in place, and before the electricity or whatever power you're talking about is generated, they become pre-existing and they would not be
That's
regulated.
the package you send us, Chris, that'll be in there, the information on the municipal electric.
I wasn't planning, but I guess I could set that up.
Well, it'd be
Same
nice to
time.
know
I'm just-
the whole package
I'm
of what's
just
going
saying.
on here.
All I was looking at was the proposed new guidelines.
Well, it seems like there's ulterior motives here on why.
Well, that's
we're
the
doing
Energy Committee. That hasn't been brought in front of the full board
it.
yet.
This is,
I'm not,
but it would be, but if we're gonna present something, if this board is gonna review something, I'd like to have the whole package in front of us. of
Oh,
what-
no, I'm not arguing, I'm
where
just
we're going
saying
with
it's,
this.
you know, that was a thought that the Energy Committee has been tossing back and forth. Hasn't been brought in front of the full board yet for their consideration.
Just
That's
like-
all I'm letting you know, Jim.
Just like this
That's
stuff
fine.
on the
Okay.
Economic Development Committee hasn't brought some stuff forward that we've been discussing too.
And one last point here with some of this land that's coming out of 61A. If the town's that concerned about it, you know, they have first right of refusal, if I'm not mistaken.
We do. Yep.
And they can
Well, it says the right
reclassify
to
land
purchase
that's
it.
no longer being farmed.
So, you know, that's an exercise you can do without a moratorium, without a bylaw, things that are already in place. Okay,
I will say, as a single member of the planning board, if the planning board was to consider, as a board, new proposed bylaws for the May town meeting, I think that's an aggressive schedule to meet, in all honesty. Because we had this discussion the other night.
That's one reason we thought it would be appropriate for a moratorium to give people time.
Well, we can discuss it,
certainly
look at it at our next meeting, and hopefully have a full board in place.
at that time, we basically looked for public input on some of the bylaws that would be presented to the town. I mean, you could get, you know, I don't think it's, you know, we could, speaking for the planning board, we can come up with some suggestions, but, you know, some of those are worded and, you know, and changed based on public input. So that means, I mean, we can move forward and look at public input and get as much as that possible on these. It's not possible.
No,
It
I
is
just think it's
aggressive,
aggressive,
but, you know.
as a part-time board.
Right, no, I agree. I do agree on that, but again, I think it's something that, you know.
It's feasible.
Was feasible.
Yeah, I'm not saying it can't be done. I mean, look,
No.
we got pushed into the corner with the marijuana bylaws, and we were able to achieve that threshold, so.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn the planning board?
Yes, I'll make that motion to adjourn the planning board meeting.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. So I know I can highlight and read.
Do the police chief.
You're in the hot seat.
Why don't you pass this down to Mr. Martin? There's only one copy of it. Why don't you give it to him so it doesn't get misplaced?
And I just want to make a, I'm not going to say a speech, but just something, and I hope the people that listen understand that. Just because as board members, we have disagreements and we don't see eye to eye on some things, does not mean we do not work together in a productive manner. I hope people understand that, so.
All we're trying to do as elected officials is to tell the residents what is available to them so they can vote and vote in what they want. That is all.
You're up.
You sure?
Chief, how are you back?
You sure you don't want to take somebody else before me?
What do you want?
Well, no, I thank you for giving me some time. As you know, we've had some part-time police officer attrition. We had a person retire, someone take a dispatch position. We also have some other issues that are foreseeable in the future. So what I'm proposing and hoping to get the board's approval support to do is to basically take some of my part-time positions that we're going to lose through this attrition and fill them with a full-time equivalent. So when you look at what the training costs are for a part-time police officer. They've changed considerably over the last several years, whereas before it was very minimal. It was firearms and CPR. Well, now you look at everything that we have to do for a full-time police officer, I have to do for every single part-time police officer. And so basically, you're multiplying all those costs by 5 if you were to look at an equivalent. So what I'm looking and hoping to do is to use this unique situation that we're in with this natural attrition and fill some part-time spots with a full-time spot. So it would be basically the same equivalent. It's not a increase to our service. It's not an increase to our budget. I'm looking to kind of be more cost-effective, and looking into the future. We also have an employment situation with a full-time person who we may have to fill that as well. So what I'm looking to do now is to fill a position, incorporating that part-time attrition, and also get ready for what I expect to be an opening down the road. One of the other things that I actually learned about this weekend that's more, it's coming up sooner than we had expected, was that they're going to start looking at part-time officers in the academy very differently than they do now. I was told that it's going to be basically the equivalent of a full-time academy, and it's going to be probably a year long, and it's going to cost $5,000.
Gentlemen, can you please keep it down? Thank you so much. Thank you.
So that's going to considerably change what the reserve intermittent or the part-time police academy looks like. Probably going to really change departments using part-time officers. And that was kind of always been discussed, but my understanding is that's in the relatively near future. So that's going to affect some things, how we move forward. So, in the end, we're going to end up turning several part-time positions into a full-time position. It's not going to increase our service number of officers. We're going to go from having less full-time officers to more full-time officers and more part-time officers to less. And in the end, will be the same. It'll be within our budget. So I'm just looking for the board's support on that.
I think is something to be said, and again, not against someone who does the job part-time, because I have a great amount of respect for that. But also I believe that someone who does the job every single day, I think is more trained, because you're doing it all the time. And just, Chief, listen to what you're saying as far as the benefits of having that, but also cost-wise, it's a cost savings, even though it's a permanent position. It's a cost savings because we're cutting down on the part-timers. But like you said, eventually to send some of these part-timers through the academy is not going to be cost-effective to do it. So I like that point.
And just so we're clear, and I don't have a crystal ball to tell how that would work out. My understanding would be that any existing part-time officers wouldn't be, I certainly don't want the board to be misled, wouldn't be required to go to this new full-time academy. For instance, the academy that someone went to 10 years ago was probably 18 or was 20 weeks.
So
it could be 24 weeks now, but they're still police officers.
Right.
But the reality of it is the dependence for police departments in the future on part-time officers is going to be affected by that when it happens.
Right.
So this is kind of looking forward to that, and also looking into the future of what I expect to likely happen with the one full-time position. So I'm looking to get the board's just support on that. I'd like to move forward with that sooner rather than later, so we can recognize the the benefit in the budget and the benefit in the training. There's an academy starting in June, so I would really like to get that first person in that academy, get them going, and then hopefully within that period of time, one way or another, we'll either have an employee back or we can we'll be able to fill that position once it's finalized. And the beauty of that scenario is most hiring situations you can't plan for. Most deficiencies in a force you can't plan for, because all of a sudden it happens today and you need someone tomorrow.
Right.
This is something that we might be able to and that costs money, usually unforeseen or unbudgeted. This is a situation, again, where
It's under your control.
we can control kind of the unknowns here, and if that works out the way that not that I think it may, but it looks like it may, we'll have one person ready to go to the academy, and we can take that second person, put them on, and they can work in that capacity until that person comes back from the academy. So they flip-flop each other, and you don't lose all that coverage while one person's gone.
To summarize it, Chief, I know we had a discussion already on this. You're looking to reorganize your department. Within your current budget, there'll be no additional funds to your budget, and that includes sick time, leave time, retirement time, health care costs, there'll be zero increase into your budget by your reorganization, and we won't be micromanaging you, is what, in summary. Is that a good way to put it?
That's a good summary.
I can't say that, because you don't know if they're gonna take health insurance or not.
Well,
There's a lot of things that I don't
That's
know.
not in his budget, that's in my budget.
I know it, well, that's why I asked the question.
He can't make that determination now if someone's gonna take health insurance or
Well,
not.
when he showed me the figures, he had them calculated in there.
The way that I looked at it is this: if you were to say they did take it, this is what the impact would be. Now, certainly, I don't have a crystal ball that can say someone's not going to take medical insurance, or they may. Their spouse may have a better plan. But also, that goes both ways. There's part-time employees who are allowed to take it, and because of the amount that they work, and there's some that don't. So
And the other issue is retirement. A full-timer has to be a member of the retirement system.
Right.
A part-timer, depending upon the number of average hours they work, don't have to be it. So there is a potential for a retirement assessment increase. I'm just letting you know, Jay.
I know
It's
that.
the benefit portion. I can't sit here and agree that says it will not go up, because you don't know what these people are gonna do. I'm sorry. Yes, it won't affect the chief's budget, because we
Right.
don't track it in his budget. It's tracked in other budgets.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying, the numbers that he showed me, he included those numbers in his expectations that it would not be going up in his budget, correct?
yes, and the issue is this, though: if you're going to assume certain things on one side, you have to assume that on the other side as well.
But all I'm saying is
Well,
to
I
sit there and say, there will be no dollar effect.
Well, it's not-
I have a problem with that. And I'm just letting the board know
I
that.
agree 100%, because that's the same thing I was thinking.
Right.
Because obviously with a full-time employee does come the health insurance and does come the retirement part of it, where most of the times your part-time people do not.
Well, those are the questions that I asked the chief when he showed me the figures. I specifically asked him, I says, what about the costs that you're currently not paying today? And he had it all sheet put out, and he says he's got it calculated out that it would not be increasing his budget. That is the only reason I said it.
His budget.
No, he.
And the reality of it is, if you were to look at health insurance is a great example.
Yeah, you
Health
don't know what it's
insurance,
gonna
health insurance can fall on either side of that, or not.
Right, exactly.
I agree,
You know,
but to
so-
sit there and say there will be no cost,
Well, I think.
okay?
Yep.
I have a problem with no cost.
That's absolutely fair. The reality of it is, budgets are a prediction.
Right.
And all we can do is the best prediction that we have. And so to answer your question, in terms of a prediction, I think it's in the best interests of the town and the police department to move in this direction.
Right, and putting,
Insurance and benefits aside, because obviously, as you said, and as Chris said, it could be a yes, or it could be a no. It could be yes to one, no to the other. But also, to think about too, is that, does it make your department more effective?
I think it absolutely does. And I think to your point, if you have anybody doing anything on a full-time basis versus a part-time basis, they are going to be more efficient. Now, we are very lucky that we have outstanding, professional, experienced part-time police officers. So we are very lucky in that regard. But I think if you look at everything all told, again, are there great full-time police officers? Yep. Are there some, and I'm not talking specifically about ours, but some that aren't? And you could say that about part-timers and as well. Absolutely. So if you were going to speak in general terms, somebody who does something on a regular basis is going to be better at it than someone who does it on a less regular basis.
I hope you wouldn't say our part-time police officers are subpar.
I would never say
I
that.
hope you wouldn't say that.
I would never say that, and they know I would never say that, so. To be clear.
So I guess, does a motion need to be made for him to
No,
do this? He just
because
needs
the
a
issue is at the next
It
meeting,
says-
he'll be bringing forth 2 candidates for
appointment.
appointment. Or at least 1 candidate
One.
for appointment now, pending the resolution of the other
Other person.
full-time
Yeah.
person situation.
If the board is agreeable to that, certainly you have other stuff on your plate, but the sooner the better, because I've got to get that person in.
March 4th. It
The
would be March
academy.
4th.
Yeah,
That's the next meeting.
I don't have any disagreement with what you're doing.
I'm in favor of you bringing someone in front of us for appointment, so.
That's it.
Okay, so March 4th?
March 4th.
Yeah, March 4th.
All right. Thank you very
We'll
much.
make it at
Thank
10
you.
PM though. So,
10 PM?
10 PM?
It's gonna be a long meeting.
You tell me what time it'll be here.
Chris is kidding. Chris is kidding. It's not 10 p.m.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You're
Chief.
welcome, thank you, Chief.
You have one more person in the audience. You want to bring him up?
Can I make a motion at this point that we take a 5-minute recess, please?
Sure, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute, you gotta reconvene the
Yes.
meeting.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion that we reconvene our select board meeting. this
And I
time.
will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for coming up.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Hard acts to follow.
Oh, it's been a long day so far. It's gonna get longer though.
I would like to give you an update on a couple of issues and some information that you probably should know about. Right now, I'm currently in the process of going through or preparing to go through our annual compliance audit for the bond issue for the school project. And
I mean, the original,
the project for the school,
the addition,
the $34
renovation?
million project,
Okay.
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 So we have to go through annual compliance, and that's always fun. Additionally, as you, obviously you know, Article 6 passed at town meeting, and we will be going out to issue bonds for that.
I thought we were gonna borrow. That was the plan, to borrow.
Well, it's officially it's bonding. I'm assuming, well, that's part of my questions. On that question, you had mentioned that it was 2% for 40 years. That's not quite entirely right.
Well, that's what I was given, so.
Well, I just want to make that clear for the record that we can borrow 2% with the state revolving fund, but that's for 20 years. And if we would go 40 years, that would be United States Department of Agricultural Rural Development. That's 40 years, but that's at market rate. Both of those also are competitive. They're not guaranteed or anything of that nature.
Everything, all the grants are competitive. That's why you gotta dot the
So-
i's and cross the t's.
I just want to make that clarification, of that correction, what was stated at town meeting. That being said, along those same lines, part of the annual audit report with the underwriters and the credit analysts, we have to make a disclosure in terms of what our long-term goals are and what our short-term goals are in terms of committing the town to obligations. So that brings to mind my question regarding the water project, regarding, you had quoted, or we voted on $1.2 million. My understanding is that gets us to Amherst Street.
It's a little bit farther than the Route 202 Mass DOT drawings
Yeah.
of today. We got on the other side of them is where it gets us.
Okay, so my question to you is, I need to know in round numbers what the additional cost would be to go all the way to Finn's Hill, and together with Phase 2 would be going down to Morgan Street, what the costs are for that, because I'd have to disclose that
Okay,
information.
Dave DeRosa gave us a cost of $1 million from Pleasant Street to the Morgan Street pipe. And that's at $250 per foot.
All right, so now we're up to 2.2 million.
And we were planning on putting in the grants to paying for the Morgan Street. Because
Yeah.
the most important thing of it is, we have to stay ahead of Mass DOT.
Oh, I understand the principle, I'm
Right.
trying to get the numbers so I can
Right.
properly fill out the
Right, but-
reports.
Depending on how we get the grants, if we can keep the money going up Mass DOT, we can go off to the side at our leisure.
I understand.
Okay.
My question is simply this, is that the 1.2 obviously is not the full funding for the entire project that was discussed. So you're telling me it's roughly another $1 million, plus we have additional costs to go to Finn's Hill.
When Mass DOT decides to do another segment, we will go before town meeting again, and we will ask the people, okay, these are the plans the Mass DOT has. They could go all the way to Belchertown, for all I know, but
That would be fine with me. I just need to know what budget numbers might be, what we might be committing the town long-term for borrowing funds. Furthermore, part of the discussion was joining the MWRA, and my understanding is that there are basically two costs to that. There's the initial cost to join the program, and also there's an annual assessment. So I need to determine, and it doesn't have to be to the penny, but I need to understand how much money that assessment may be.
according to Beth Card at the MWRA, because there's already legislation for Granby to receive water from South Hadley, we may not even have to join the MWRA. If we were to join the MWRA, that would bring in segment 3, which is the intersection of East Street and New Ludlow Road, so we can become our own entity. But right now, we don't even have to become part of the MWRA.
That's fine. But what I'm trying to determine, as I said, is what these anticipated costs could be, because I have to disclose this information to the underwriters. That could affect our bond rating. So it's my obligation to disclose what I know. And I've spoken with Mr. Martin. We're trying to obtain information in terms of what these costs could be. Not to say that they will be, but I have to disclose this information to the underwriters. I do know that Mr. Martin was able to determine some formulas. However, we were not able to calculate what the impact might be. But my understanding also is that the cost, if we were to join, could be amortized over 25 years. Well, that indicates to me that it's a pretty large number. It's not $1.89. So my point is simply that I need as much information as I possibly can get to fill out these applications and forms properly.
I will contact Beth Card and see where she stands on us, but the last information she gave me was because there's legislation already passed and the pipes that come from Nash Hill Reservoir to South Hadley District 1 are owned by South Hadley, that we could just work with South Hadley and wouldn't have to do it. There would be a volume increase in the amount of water as determined with the needs of Granby is, which would be added to the total volume of South Hadley.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question, Jack?
Sure.
Is it just South Hadley water we'll be dealing with, or South Hadley fire and water?
I specifically did, as you said, it's South Hadley Water District only. No fire. We have our own fire department. And if you need to, I believe I CC you on that email to Beth Card, and I can do it again if you wish.
But I think the question is this, Jack.
Okay.
It's a South Hadley Fire District 1 fire and water district. In order for them to provide water, do they have to expand the service area of the fire and water district?
According to Jeff Sear, the answer is no, because they do not provide fire protection up New Ludlow Road or Morgan Street. They just do water. Versus 116, they do fire and water. That's District 2. That's what I was told.
So they don't have to go in front of the legislature to expand their service area?
No, because we're under a legislative act right now for health and safety reasons to bring water up New Ludlow Road and Morgan Street. And according to Beth, she says if you still have health and safety issues, that legislation is still going to stand and you can just work with South Hadley. But if you want to become your own entity in the future, then you would have to revisit it. And that would be segment 3, if we wanted to do that.
So you need to know So for instance,
If the town is looking to move the water up to Amherst Street, you'd have to let them know, well, the town also has thoughts of moving the water further down the road, which could mean an additional cost to the town. So you're kind of forecasting out what our liabilities down the road could be.
Forecast out
Right.
basically what projects
Right,
is the
'cause,
town considering?
Right, because obviously it's not going to be 40 years from now we do the second part.
No,
That's
but-
not going to be paid, so.
You can understand the reasoning behind the questions from the underwriters. They want to know, what are we committing ourselves to
Basically, when you
next
go
year,
for a
5
loan
years,
as a-
10 years?
As a regular person or whatever, what do you, down the road, you're going to have these, you have these obligations coming up, and we need to know, make sure that you can afford them, yeah.
When I did
Precisely the point.
mileage from the school to Five Corners, it was 3 miles. Okay? I can't see us forecasting any more than that because that'd be our greatest issue and problem if we were to have it.
I think we're making progress.
But you're just saying, hey, I just
Yeah.
need to let,
I need some
you
rough
need some
idea.
rough numbers so we can say, this could be potential obligations down the road.
That's correct. We have to identify those things. Whether they're likely or not, we have to identify them.
Right. I think potentially, and I'm looking at from the town's aspect, that if we include the town buildings to include the school systems, both of the schools, that would be the highest priority. So we'd have to add 3 miles on to the Five Corners project. And currently, it's $250 a foot. I could take 5,280 times 3, because we already got the 1.2 counted for, and give you a number if that's what you want.
I need some budget numbers and the scope of the work that you're anticipating.
Well, the thing of it is, the scope of the work I'm anticipating is strictly water. Now, if people want to bring the sewer pipes up, that's a whole different subject that I haven't gone
Well,
nowhere yet.
Right now, the sewer was not on the warrant article.
That's
so
correct.
No concern of mine. However, you have the extension all the way up to about Finn's Hill. You also have the project going down Morgan Street. I need some budgetary numbers regarding those items. Additionally, at town meeting, you had mentioned the possibility or consideration that the town may entertain is the creation of a water district.
Yes.
That would also have to be disclosed to the underwriters, because that certainly could affect the liability. We would hopefully transfer this liability to a water district, perhaps, and that would lessen the obligation on the town of Granby. However, I have very little detail on that perspective, whether that's...
As I stated at the special town meeting, right now, it's not to our advantage to create our own water commission now, because we don't have anybody on it. We'll ride along with South Hadley until we get enough business to justify the creation of the water commission, and then we will go on from there, but it's,
Makes sense, but here's this thing again,
Yeah.
there's potential out,
Forecasting out, they want to
that's what I'm coming up with right now.
Yeah,
Get you all the way to the school.
Okay.
It's $3,960,000 at the current rate.
Can I round it to 4?
You may round it to $4,500,000 if you
Well,
want.
thank you.
Because I don't know how long it's gonna take Mass DOT to get there, and we all know everything gets more expensive every year.
Right, they're
You know
looking
what
for
I'm
a
saying?
number, they're looking for an accurate
I'll use
number.
budgetary numbers of 4
Use
million
5.
right now.
Use 5.
Use 5? That's fine.
Use 5.
All right,
Or am I going too high, Chris? I'd rather go tell the,
it could very well be, but
I'm just using the numbers the day gives me, and I'm going by the,
Because the issue is to go down Morgan
Street, you may have to put a pump on it to increase the pressure.
that is always
Okay,
a
I think you go
possibility.
uphill for a section there.
The engineering studies will tell us by the hydraulic
think there's a
engineers.
rise.
There's a little incline.
There's a rise, so I'm
Yeah.
just saying is
Yeah.
you may have to put a pump station in
And
there.
we may have to put a pump station, get out to the schools as well.
I will give a range of numbers that are at least under consideration. Another question just occurred to me. My understanding is the engineering for the project as it sits right now is about $200,000. Does that also include Phase 2 down to Morgan Street? Do you know?
The answer to that is no.
Okay, so we'd have to increase that number as well for engineering.
Dave says it'd be about $1 million to do from Pleasant Street to Morgan Street, which would include the engineering. for that.
Including engineering.
I think, how soon do you need the numbers?
Oh, I need them yesterday.
Because I really like to get input from Dave Droscher. And
That's where I'm getting my
That's his,
information.
but it's his expertise.
As soon as
so
you
we
can communicate the information to me, it would be appreciated, because the report is
I
actually
want to
due
make
at
sure
the
you're
end of
getting
the
real
month.
numbers that they feel comfortable saying, yes, could be our liability.
I
10
think
years
you're
from
really
now.
gonna have to wait until we start doing the engineering portion of the 1.2 million. For the simple reason is, all I'm saying is, as Chris pointed out, if we have to put some pumps and stuff in, like those towers, to increase the water pressure.
But Dave, Dave has contacts, Dave can see what the going rate is to fulfill
All of my
things
numbers
and-
have come from Dave.
And just to follow up, and we're talking in terms of a time frame, when phase two, let's say, might go into effect. I'm trying to determine when the appropriation is likely to occur for either the Finns Hill portion or the Morgan Street. Is it a year from now, 2 years from now, would you say?
I would say if we get the grant money that we're hoping for fiscal year 2019, we'd use it on Morgan Street and Pleasant Street. If we don't get the money for that, then we reapply the next year, then we'll use that money on the Route 202 section again.
All right, but you're perhaps missing the point I'm trying to illustrate, is you still need an appropriation, whether you get the grant or not. So you have to go back to town meeting, because you only have 1.2 to get you so far. And so an additional appropriation would be needed to go to Finns Hill and/or Morgan Street. So my question then is that a timeframe, a year, 2 years, 3 years? Would you guess?
He's saying 2019, that's within a year.
Yeah. Because we have to
Okay.
work with Mass DOT schedule. That's the hardest part. If they ever expedited their schedule, we'd have to make a decision.
But for Steve to fill out the forms. He needs the information.
I told you, on Dave's numbers, that's what I've got. right
Okay,
there.
so if we go, say, went to, 4 million, and I double check with Dave, just
I'll
because
try to
you
confirm.
talked about the pumps and stuff like
We're
that.
not
as Chris
looking for
mentioned.
exact numbers, we're
Right,
just looking at
right, and you want to be,
projections.
right, but you want to be, you can estimate what a cost would be, given on,
It's a guesstimate.
it is, right,
I go
but,
5 million. 1.2 to get you to Amherst Street.
right.
Yeah.
Another probably 1.5 or 1.1 probably to get you up to Finns Hill. $1.2 million to Morgan Street. If it's $1.2 million to get you to Amherst,
Yeah.
we're planning 20% construction. If it's $1 million going down, plan 1.2 down to there. So you're at what, 2.4? You're at 3.5. I go 4 million. 4 million over the next 3 years. Over the next 3 years.
Just better off maybe 5, just
So that
based on
also-
inflation and what cost.
Over the next 3 years, I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's
That
what I would
raises
say.
an interesting point, too, because if they really are that close together, we may want to wait and issue towards the end, because we have issuance costs, which is actually another one of my questions. I'm assuming that issuance costs for these bonds are not in your budget at all?
I would have to say no, because all I have is engineering and piping cost from Dave DeRocher. That's all I have.
So then, I guess, Mr. Martin, I'm going to have to add issuance costs to my fiscal year 20 budget that we're preparing now.
What is that? What's the amount usually?
I don't know. I would guess probably $60,000 to $100,000.
Cost us $72,000 to issue the bonds for the school edition.
And that was what, 36 million or something?
No.
That was 13.5.
13.5.
The cost of issuance is not
Is
based
a-
on
is a
par.
foundation.
It's- Right, it's,
Yeah,
it only increases slightly when you add zeros.
right. But there's a base cost.
I'll lay out that it'll cost you about 60 grand. Because when you got to get the green light letter from council, then you have to pay your fiscal agent fee, and then you have to pay the fee to advertise it, the fee for them to take them in and rate them, and the whole 9 yards, so. About 60 grand is usually what it costs you.
So again, we'll have to, I'll sit down with Mr. Martin and we'll develop a strategy for financing this project. But any information you can give me would be
Yeah.
most helpful.
I've given you all the information that Dave drew. And,
4 million.
yeah, South Hadley is doing their estimation on $213 a foot. We're doing ours on $250 a foot, because we'd rather have a cushion. And that's on GCAM from the public forum from Jeff Sear, $213 a foot. cost South Hadley last year for Newton Street and Route 116?
Those are some significant numbers, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah.
The budgets are the same, just how many zeros you got?
I think that concludes my information, unless you have any questions.
Now, do you think we should keep proceeding as we're doing?
Restate that question, please.
I says, do you agree that we should keep on going as we have told the voters that we're gonna do, and give them the choice the next time that Mass DOT comes out with a schedule and see what they wanna do?
What concerns me is getting the most bang for our buck. Just using issuance cost alone, I'd much rather issue a $5 million bond than 5 $1 million bonds.
Then I would make this recommendation that we can consider. Once we get the water into the town of Granby from South Hadley, when we go out for the next year extension on Mass DOT, we do it for a lot longer length than they're going to do. If it's cut the cost down and see what the people say.
Because technically, we could finish phase 1 and go to the town, and the town could say, no,
That's right.
we don't want to spend phase 2.
That's right. That's exactly what I
Phase 2.
said.
Right, I understand that, so I think we should move forward with phase 1 just based on, I see what you're saying.
Right, I'm not saying whether or not
Right.
we should move
No,
forward
no.
with phase 1.
Right, I
I'm
was going-
looking at financing only.
Right, I'm basing on kind of what Jay said. We told the town that's what we're doing.
And that's what we should do.
I think it's, Chris said we're looking at probably about a $60,000 cost for the bond. I think we should move forward, because we don't know how long this could take. This could take 2-3 years. It depends on the state. The state could come back and say, we don't have the funding to do what we want to do at 202, so we're going to push it off a year and a half.
There's a lot of analysis that has to be done on this,
Right.
obviously, to determine the best way to finance it,
Yep.
including answering the question whether it's going to be state revolving fund or
Right.
rural development, certainly.
I think that's what these books here were.
That, just so the board knows, that generally speaking, the consulting engineer for these projects oftentimes, or normally will, provide guidance
No, we'll show you.
and analysis on that so that we don't have
It says
to
clean
pay
water, state
twice
revolving fund.
for that information. Is it, did I see AECom?
Yep,
Okay.
that's
all
the
right.
one from 2009.
Are you working with Dennis, or are you working with Mary
I'm
Burgess?
not working with anybody right now. I'm just doing all the reading and all the homework, just like I did from 2008. I read all that stuff, and I gather the information, and then I work with Dave to update the prices and all the logistics that are in there.
Are you going through an RFP process to select the engineer?
That'll be worked out with Dave DeRocher and Mr. Martin. I invite on them on their guidance on that.
What were you saying before about the engineer? What's the benefit?
Usually, on projects like this, when you have
Right.
infrastructure, the engineer will, AECom, only because we've used them in the past.
Right.
They have a whole department that helps with structuring financing and the best way for the municipality to go to finance these projects.
Obviously, there's a cost involved.
That's
there as
built
well.
in their cost, in their overall
Okay.
engineering fee, certainly. I mean, we still have our costs outside of that because we have our FA, our financial advisor, to go over these numbers as well. But again, from an issuance cost point of view only, it's cheaper to do one big
Right.
number,
Obviously, right.
right, than to
You're
do.
paying for the bond once, not.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
You pay your base fee once, and your incremental fee as required. Depends how many zeros you got, like you said.
It's a lot of
But like I
zeros.
said, the option is to get the water here first. And once the water here, then the people can decide what they want to do with it. Because we cannot forecast if things are going to get bad, worse, or indifferent. But at least when the water's here, they have an alternate water source. Because once 202 is locked down for 5 years, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get down that road.
You're not telling me anything I don't know.
Okay.
So my suggestion to the board, I guess, is simply this, is that if your intention is to proceed with the extension of the the water main and also go down, that you probably might want to consider acting more quickly than slowly in this particular issue, so that we can determine engineering first. We know what the costs are. We can apply for grants at that point in time, determine whether or not we can get any grants to help pay for this project. But equally as important, work out the strategy for financing a project like this. $5 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that.
And that's why we're only going for 1.2 to bring the water into Granby, so we have an alternate fresh water source. That was the whole,
It'd be good too to make sure that the state is still on track with 202.
right. And we have tried, and they are not returning our calls. I do know that people are receiving letters from High Street to South Hadley for their property.
So, would that be important? And, if we gotta contact our state reps.
I've already talked to Eric Lesser. He's supposed to be setting up a round table between all the parties to get everybody on the same sheet of music.
Well, let's stay on our,
Yeah,
it's on our
that's all
lesser.
we can do is stay on it.
Because obviously you need the numbers, you need to know, but we don't want to move forward and find out it costs us more money down the road if we have a potential to save money.
That's why we used $250 a foot versus the $213 that they paid last year.
So,
All right, gentlemen, I'll keep you posted in terms of the progress on the town's review, our official statement, and keep you apprised of any change in our bond rating.
I hope the bond rating stays as it is, but do you think there's a chance of it going lower with stabilization being depleted if we go into town meeting?
That's a very good question.
That's my concern.
My personal thought on that matter is that the more you take out of stabilization, the more likely it may affect our bond rating negatively.
I agree. That's why so everybody understands when we go into annual and town meeting, that if we deplete stabilization, these costs could go up, and no matter what we do, if the stabilization fund is depleted for operating expenses for other departments, shall we say.
I would strongly urge the board not support any stabilization funds for operations.
I'm not supporting any. I've already said that.
Any other questions, Mr. Chairman?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. I guess we could accept the departmental reports.
I have read them and I don't have any issues with them. Mr. Martin and I discussed them already.
just give me review one particular item.
Just so the board knows, engine 3 is back and it is in service.
Is that the one that was down in, was it Connecticut they were working on?
Yeah, for the fifth piston.
All they had to do was replace the engine, so the 14,000
That's good.
figure, so.
And they ground the valve down or something.
Don't know exactly what they did, but
I hear they ground the valve and the piston, that's making, so they weren't scoring no more.
so.
Again, I haven't seen the tear down analysis report, so I'm just going by word of mouth.
I haven't seen the invoice yet either. So.
Okay. I'm gonna make it, Kathy. I told my wife I'd take my pills for 5:30 supper.
It's interesting that the highway department spent $2,000 on a vehicle that's gonna be replaced this year. Well, it's unfortunate. But you need a vehicle running,
Yep. Did you plow the snow? Now, Mr. Martin, that's the same vehicle that we plan on keeping for the park people, right?
No, that's a highway. This is,
Oh, that's right. The other one, you're right. I'm getting too confused. You're right.
yep. Ours is public buildings.
Yeah, I'm thinking the other one, yeah.
I'd like to also publicly acknowledge Bosher and his team. I think I've heard a lot of positive feedback from, I know we've talked about it many times on this board, but just in regards to the job they've done, plowing the town and really keeping it up. I think it's worth
They do a
saying,
stellar job.
They do. I'm gonna make a motion that we accept department head reports.
And I will second Glenn's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
The other maintenance warrants?
The blue one.
Oh, right over 'em. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve and sign maintenance warrants for fiscal year 19, number 47, 48, 49, and 50.
I will second Glenn's motion.
All in favor? Aye.
You want them in a certain pile.
You lost the paper clip.
I found a big one down here if you want to use it, and Joe left behind.
No? When this one gets down to you, oh, never mind.
That's what the clerk's for.
Let me send that down there, would you?
Okay.
I gotta sign it.
Okay.
You put it over there, but I didn't sign it yet. Those are all signed, it's over there.
topic.
Sure.
Which will be 61A removal request. We have a property located on Taylor Street that is looking to be taken out of 61A. We had our land review committee review the proposed land, and it was their motion not to exercise our option to purchase this property. It would be better served put back on the full property tax rolls as additional income to the community. And there is your letter indicating that you will not exercise your right of first refusal on that piece of property.
And that's the property owner that's giving the land to his neighbor next door?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so it's like an A&R, but except it won't be 61A anymore? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve and sign the notice of intent not to exercise the town's option under Mass General Laws, Chapter 61, to purchase property located, it's on the deed book 7121, page 61, deed book 4826, page 153, in Hampshire County Register of Deeds, Northampton, and is shown on the assessor's map as 6A-5.2 and a portion of 6A-4.17 consisting of 1.3334 acres owned by Raymond J. and Shirley R. McKenzie Street, 254 Taylor Street, Granby, Mass. 01033. Is there an extra street in here?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, there is.
Okay.
We just want to make sure you get the street correct. That's all.
Okay.
Taylor Street.
So I'll make a motion that we approve when it's corrected, just in regards to, there's a misspelling in it, so. That is my motion.
I will second your motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item I have is AJ's Auto Body down on 39 West State Street. Has a Class 2 license that they're looking to renew. The concern, and it was also raised by our building inspector, is they have taken over the space that was occupied by Yankee Glass. They are also storing vehicles in the grassy section
Next to
out by
the
the
brook.
trees, next to the brook, which is conservation, which is wetlands. Okay? Also, they have never come in front of the planning board for a revision of their site plan approval.
Their site plan says they're allowed to have a maximum of 5 unregistered vehicles out front. I'm just saying what it's.
But all I'm saying, Jay, is if they are expanding and they are now storing vehicles out by the wetland area, and they've turned around and they brought in a waste line, they now have a sanding operation without ventilation, what are their real plans for that place? And should it have gone through a site plan revision? Or site plan approval for the increased size of their operation?
I don't disagree with that as far as that goes. I know when I was on the planning board, there was a question in the amount of vehicles. That's why I know how many they're allowed to have, because we did do the research on it. In fact, I think Glenn will tell you that I was the one that appointed to do the research on it. And they had 5 unregistered vehicles. Is all they're allowed to have. A lot of the damaged vehicles are still registered, so they don't count. The unregistered vehicles was the only thing, restriction they have on their current site plan.
But I believe a lot of the vehicles that were under repair were supposed to not be along the side of 202. If you read the license, I believe.
I think it's during business hours, after business hours, they're supposed to be, I think, put
away.
behind, not visible.
Put away, but I know I've driven past or past business hours and They're still sitting on the side of the building or sitting on the side of the road.
I just look at it, it sounds like they have expanded into the old glass company shop there, so they've made their business larger, and I don't know what their intentions are as far as vehicles and things like that. So I think it's reasonable to have them go in front of the planning board and ask for a site plan approval, just to kind of update what they have now as far as that area. Because it looks like, you know, that's the building next to that one there, where they currently are. So I think it's,
You know, originally there was just that one little bay shop where they would go in
right.
Yep,
and do their repair work. Now they have a large,
right, they go out to the right,
yes.
and now they go to the left too.
I don't know what their original site plan approval looks like, so I think it's fair to ask them to go back in front of the planning board for a site plan approval on if they desire to have any expansion with vehicles. If not, they can just, I think just bring the one they've used in the past if they don't anticipate to do anything. But I think it should be, just based on the business getting larger, I think it's, when the planning board approved the site plan form was based on this particular area. And it seems like it's grown, so I think it's fair just to ask them to go back in front of the planning board to have a site plan approval. So
Yeah, it'd be paragraph 6.3.
that's just my thoughts.
Okay.
So,
Now you have a entertainment license.
The class 2 licenses.
So we got an entertainment license for Pioneer Valley Chapter 8 Camping Club located at 104 West 8th Street, Granby, Mass. 01033. It is for entertainment license to provide entertainment to customers as follows. Live entertainment consisting of DJ or small bands inside the building for members, a members event only, and live entertainment on the patio behind the main building between 12 p.m. and 10 p.m., only located at 104 West 8th Street, Granby, Mass. This license would be in effect until December 31st, 2019. I'll make a motion that we approve the license as read.
What was the address on that?
104 West 8th Street,
That's the camping club.
Camping Club.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I tried to
we're-
figure out, okay.
No, we're by the.
I'll second Glenn's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do they normally put in for one every year? They do? Okay. Because I just don't see too much activity over there when I drive by it.
No, I guess, just in case they.
During the summer,
Yeah.
they'll do things on the weekends or on like a Friday night or something. They'll have a little get together.
I mean, a lot of it's only for they only
They're
rent it
members.
out to the members only.
Yeah, I just haven't
Family
seen.
oriented?
So there's another one for a common vic license for Pioneer Valley Chapter 8 of NAFCA, 104 West 8th Street, Granby, Mass. 01033. They're inquiring or asking to be approved for a common vic license expiring December 31st, 2019. I'll make a motion that we approve said vic license.
I will second Glenn's motion.
All in favor?
Aye. See, I get everything checked off.
Yep. The only thing I want to go through is Dufresne Rentals.
Okay.
We currently have 3 of them here. First one is for the Granby Charter Days. Reservation date is June 10th, and our arrival and departure is June 17th of 2019. The next one is on June 22nd. Number of people is 200 for pavilion and bathrooms. And this is for a wedding reception. And then we have the Granby Saddle Club looking for both the horse rings and the parking area. The first one is for Saturday, September 14th. Estimated number of people, 200, no alcohol. The next one is for Saturday, May 18th, 2019, 200 people, no alcohol. And the third one is for Saturday, July 27th, 200 people, no alcohol. And all of them are for the horse rings and the parking area.
The only question I have on that, Chris, I know they're removing that 13,000 volt line and there'll be no power over there. Do they have to do something?
They all have to rent generators.
Right, and they don't have to do anything with the fire department or anything like that when they rent it?
No.
I didn't know, that's why I wanted to ask.
They are requesting a reduction in their rental fee, however, that's up to the Parks Oversight Committee to decide whether they're going to grant them a reduced rate due to the fact that there is no power now.
Is the, give me a second, it'll come to me. Charter days, are they looking for waive the fee?
We usually charge them a reduced fee,
Okay.
just to play it safe.
Okay.
Okay. Because we do have to have the gentleman go out there and open and check the bathrooms.
So we're
and-
paying for someone, so we need to,
Yes.
yeah, we need to recoup the costs.
The minimum cost of at least the gentleman going out there and performing those services.
They're on a revolving fund, they only get to keep what they make, right?
Yes. However, they did want to be included in this year's budget to get be included to get an appropriation. However, due to the fact that they are a revolving fund under 4453E1/2, we can't subsidize them. Okay, and nowhere's in our general bylaw when they were created as a revolving fund did it say that they would get tax support. If they need bid projects, my thing is to have them keep coming in, come in front of the board, and we go as a special article in front of town meeting for large capital projects, not for operations. If your fee schedule isn't making it, increase your fees.
That's right.
That's all there is to it. Okay, we will not subsidize their operations, but we will assist in large capital expenditures.
Right, but anybody that needs capital increase gotta go for the capitalization.
Right.
Correct.
And just so you know, Glenn, I am still requesting a second bid. I am still requesting an end date before work is commencing under the article that was approved in February.
So with that said, I guess I thought that process had already been done. So it's gone to the town floor. The town's voted on it. I would like to see the electrical work started and really take effect as soon as possible. Just because, I mean, the town voted on it for it.
And that's understandable, but again, I'm gonna be the one hung out to dry as the chief procurement officer for the town. If we're getting up to $30,000-$40,000 for this project, and I don't have documentation, it's gonna be me who's hung out to dry.
I thought it was.
That's not the board.
I thought it was 13,000.
But this is phase two of the project. Remember? Phase one cost about 20 some odd thousand. Phase two is costing about 13,000. So
In its
not to be
entirety.
considered bid splitting, which is, we all know is illegal
Illegal.
under
Right.
Mass General Law. I have to consider this as phase two of the project that wasn't originally put out as phase two of a three-phase project. When they first were presented, this is what it was gonna cost us. Now it's grown to a point where I believe I need another bid for at least this part. And I want the end date. I don't want it to drag on forever and ever and ever. You know, just a fill in here or a fill in there.
You mean the end date of the project?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so-
hopefully it'll come in before charter date.
Okay, and I did speak with Billy Johnson. That information was never relayed to him from the meeting that Mr. Barry attended here, and I
Okay.
believe another member of the committee. So I did talk to Bill, and he did understand it's a request, was a request from the board that hasn't been met. So he was gonna work on getting that information from
So
me.
how far are we away from?
That I don't know, I have to get back in touch with him again.
That's just my thing is where we are, because I know that the town has appropriated the money. Definitely like to see
Completion.
completion is, in as Jay mentioned, Charter Day, coming up in the near future. I'd like to get some of those.
I understand that, but also, like I said, I'm not putting my reputation out there just to get a project done. I'm sorry,
No,
but,
I agree with you 100%, and I'm not looking
you
to
know,
do anything we shouldn't be doing.
because the OIG will come after me, or they won't come after the board, they won't come after Parks Oversight. They'll come after the procurement office,
Okay.
okay? And I don't need that. I got
So
enough
that's-
hassles as it is.
So
Now-
you follow what you believe to be, like I say, you believe you're gonna follow what is correct,
Yes,
and that's how we'll move forward.
Well, it's
So-
Yes.
well, it's legal. I mean,
yes.
Well, that's why I
Yes.
by
said,
law.
I
Oh,
said
I-
correct. I said believed, and I said correct. I changed it, so I
Okay.
definitely would like to,
Yes, I'd like to get it to move along as much as possible. I agree.
but more, that's on them getting the second bid at this
Yes.
point.
And if I'm not mistaken, the RFPs for the junior, senior high school roof will be in next week?
Yes, actually, it was published in the Central Register on February 13th. The walkthrough for the high school is tomorrow at 10 a.m. And bids are due on Wednesday, February 27th at 1 p.m. And basically, we are moving forward.
That's it?
I know I did receive an email from a resident who wanted to know where the process was, because I guess it's still being debated at school committee meetings.
It is.
The actual process is this. A RFP was in accordance with Mass General Law procurement regulations. An RFP was created, approved by the Board of Selectmen, published in the Central Register on February 13th, 2019. The design process, once we select the successful designer, we'll have to have design, have a RFP, have bids in from prospective construction firms for a construction period of July 8th to August 23rd. Period.
Right. I understand it, but I thought, with all the debate going on, we should repeat it since on GCAM right now, so everybody's clear, the town has already put it out to bid, and they're coming in, and we're getting ready to go.
And I will not be swayed to delay, change, or do anything else regarding this project.
I understand that.
So we're looking for it to take place during the summer, though, right? Take place.
July 8th
8th.
to August 23rd is the construction period. Period.
Now, I'm just asking an off-the-wall question from the Energy Committee, because they asked me and I didn't have the answer. Is part of the design on this new roof going to be looking at maybe to put solar up there?
No,
Okay,
no, because then I would probably have to go and do a structural analysis.
yeah.
I don't want to go through that right now. What I am looking at doing is just per the request of the school commit, or the school department, we're removing all the skylights.
Yep,
We're covering up the holes with plywood, putting down new membrane, and we are correcting the air ventilation units on the roof.
and we never received a letter from the school committee authorizing us to go ahead. We just got the dates and went.
I just went with the dates no matter what.
I know it, I got the dates.
You got the dates. I put in what dates I wanted.
Right,
You said, they said June 25th.
I think it was June the 14th through September, something was there, breaking the school schedule. Then we threw another couple of weeks into it in case they have an overrun or something like that.
So what do you mean,
Technically, the school committee is in charge of all operations of the school.
Wrong.
Okay.
Under ed reform,
Oh,
the school
principal.
principal
Yes,
is responsible for anything that occurs in their building.
right.
That's why I had the school principal
On
the committee.
Right.
Okay? The issue is you were given a date by the superintendent of school that work could occur between June
Yep.
and September.
Right.
I'm saying this work should occur over a 2-week period at the max.
In a compressed summer schedule, Chris compressed the work to be done.
Well,
Because
right.
we- 'cause
But
they-
also, I would take into consideration a weather factor
Yes.
as well. And the contractors are gonna come in and tell you how long the job will take.
Right, but then
We can't-
also, we're looking at possibly a change order, because until they start digging that apart, they may find something that we're not aware of. So we wanted to make sure we have plenty of time in there.
Right. So, I mean, what are you looking for, an authorization letter from the principal?
I'm not looking for anything.
Nothing, we're gone.
What did you just say?
I'm just saying, that on the school committee's thing, they're saying that they're not postponing it, that the town is postponing this project.
Okay.
And I'm saying, we're not postponing it, and based on the dates that I got from the superintendent that the school would be available, we went ahead.
Okay, so
Because it
we're
didn't
moving
make it
forward.
last year.
So- Okay, so we're moving forward.
I just want the residents to know.
Yeah,
Okay, and we have
Okay.
a walkthrough tomorrow. I believe it's myself, Steve,
yep,
Nally, and Steve Sullivan,
Yep.
principal.
And I think I've been contacted probably by 2 or 3 firms. I know John Sullivan's gotten a few phone calls to try for contractors or designers to come and look at what's going on that roof. Which, thank God, is occurring Wednesday, because Wednesday night we have another snowstorm, rain, ice and sleet and rainstorm coming in.
yep.
So,
But we just didn't want to see this go past like it did last year.
Absolutely,
And,
like anybody does.
but I'm just letting the board know, everything is set in concrete right now, that once the designer is selected, they have to have their work done, and the RFP's out, and the bids received, and the bid awarded for that July 8th through August 23rd construction period.
And there should be more than enough time to do change orders unless something drastically is found.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming, again, when the contractor comes out to look at things and kind of a good idea of what it is, they're not just gonna,
Right.
a blind,
Well,
estimate on it.
I think they always have the caveat though
Yeah.
of weather,
So it's in-
weather permitting
Yeah.
too.
But just Jay's saying is, structure is the things, the things underneath the membrane originally, did it get wet? Did it,
Can rot out.
right,
Yeah.
did it doing something to the structure, all that stuff is maybe unknown, and they may see that when they inspect the roof anyway, so.
Right, and the nice thing is Steve Nally was the building inspector when the last roof was, when the roof was replaced back in the early 90s, so he knows what's sitting underneath that membrane right now too. And whether or not weather would affect it or not.
So is that, I would imagine, based on when that building was built, it was a gravel roof on it, and then they went over with the membrane. Because
And
that
they-
was,
and
that was a
they-
time frame back in
Yeah.
that time, the membrane became popular.
And they
Now it's
did,
more
and
of
they
a
did
rubber roof.
structural improvements at
Right.
that point. I think they put more insulation or something in there.
Yeah,
and-
well, it's usually they do like an insulation board, at that particular time back then was like an insulation board, and you go over with the membrane.
Yeah.
Now everything's kind of like it's almost like a rubber roof, a lot of this stuff.
Because not to rehash all the solar stuff, there's coming out some more grants for solar roofs and stuff like that for municipalities. That's why the Energy Committee was curious to know about the school roof, since it's going to be redone, if there's any possibility. Mr. Martin and I have already discussed briefly about the fire department's side of the roof.
That's something that, structurally, they might be okay already, depending how it was built and when it was built. and
We
knows?
don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
So, hey, there is one thing I was thinking about the other day, in regards to our agendas, and I always look at them, it always has new business and information. I think if we can start putting down on there old business and maybe action items, so that things aren't just falling by the wayside. Not that they do, I think sometimes we get caught up in things, we miss stuff, so I think sometimes if we have old business on there, it reminds us, oh yes, remember this here. Where are we on this? I think that'd be, just from my point of view, I think, a lot of committees that I sit on or something like that, there's always like an old business and action items to make sure that we are doing it. More for us, not for you, Chris. You see things every day the three of us, we see things.
As it was
it's-
said, Mr. Chinaki does come in, talk to me on a daily basis
Yeah.
to get filled in on what's going on.
But we don't.
Hopefully, at some point, when you become chair, we'll have daily contact too.
Wow.
You have to.
No, honestly,
It's helpful.
it
absolutely.
really
Of
is,
course it is,
it
yeah.
really is a necessity almost.
Right, but I think it's always important for the full board to get
Oh, yeah.
information,
You know,
and
Jay
that's why
comes in, him and I'll talk about various things, you
Yeah.
know, it's easier sometimes just filling you in on a one-on-one basis,
Yeah.
you know,
No, but that's not what I'm really talking about here.
No,
I'm just
no,
talking
I
about
understand
stuff
that,
for us.
but,
I think,
but I,
You know,
got a good point.
right.
I will state that, you know, there's been times Jay's been in my office 2 hours, Steve has been in my office 2 hours, you know, or a
Glenn's
department
been
head
there
will
for
come
2
in.
minutes, we know.
No, but, you know, a department head will come in while he's in there, and, you know, all of a sudden we'll start talking, and he's informed of what's going on in, like either the fire department or the highway department or whatever.
But-
You know, Jay was asking me about the compressed air foam system on engine 2.
But they see it, and I don't hear it or see it, or I get the.
We need to come in more often.
Well, well, it'd be a public meeting if I can know when they're there. But it becomes
Have
now
pizza
the.
for lunch and he'll be here.
It becomes this smaller version, like I missed out on some stuff, and
Yeah.
then I feel sometimes when people ask me, well, no, I didn't hear about that. Are you sure? Because I heard people discussing it, and I feel like a fool.
No,
you know,
we're glad, like,
sometimes.
on the Energy Committee, we're closing out the FY18 grant.
I'm not talking about energy committee. I'm talking about what this board here
Yes.
oversees and what we do.
Oh, that's what I'm upset. I don't go upstairs for this board.
Oh, you do too on occasion, come on.
Very, very seldom. Most
Oh,
of it's energy.
come
And we're gonna
on,
be signing
come on.
invoices all
Come
day on the next.
come on, you go up there, we talk.
Ask Kathy, I stay out of here pretty much. Sign that new.
Sign it and send it for the.
He's gotta get going pretty soon.
Yeah, 5:30, my supper.
How was it?
I don't know. I haven't had it.
Pizza.
Oh,
need to
they want
we
you
need
to do
to-
minutes. She wants
Oh,
to
the
do
minutes.
10 minutes. Let me sit here quickly.
That voice from the background.
She keeps everything straight. That's why she's the CEO.
What does she see? Nothing? An O, a C, O.
Kathy doesn't like it when you do that to her.
That's why we do it.
Put the camera on her.
She'd kick him if she did.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from January 29th.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye. There's 2 sets of minutes there.
Oh, the February 4th. I'll make a motion.
If you wish to amend them, you can.
That's what I'm reading right now.
Because as I mentioned earlier, I got poked in the ribs.
And I mentioned earlier, I didn't know anything about the discussion.
Well, I can't answer that. I was
And I'm only answering for myself,
at my end of the table.
and I was at my end of the table.
Yeah, but you're right next to Glenn. And he was the center point of that whole discussion.
Only one time I got pulled away from the table was by the attorney, because he wanted that paper from the Telegram about the tax abatement. And I had to go get it out of my thing, because he saw on the handout when they became tax-free,
Oh.
remember? And I walked back to get my stuff to give him, so he could read it, because he was unaware of it. That's the only thing that I knew as far as the attorney goes, or any interactions myself.
So the meeting, or the minutes need to reflect that there was a vote taken. And
Who made the, do you know who made the motion and who seconded it?
I believe I made the motion, because Steve being chair, I made the motion, he seconded it. As I'm thinking back, because I remember when I was writing it down, as people say, in my notebook, and it wrote down, make motion.
Okay.
So,
So I'll just have Kathy reflect that in this set of minutes, that you're amending the motion, the minutes of, to reflect the motion was made
right,
to withdraw Article 1.
correct.
Okay.
Like I said, I know, we came up earlier, I wasn't sure, and then as I'm looking, they do a lot of writing, and we have meetings minutes, and it was there, made motion to.
See, I didn't hear the motion or the second, so I can't say.
No,
Unfortunately, I
it was
didn't
out,
hear
it was
either.
loud, because, people were
Yeah.
kind of walking up to the table and stuff like that particular time too, so.
Because I know Mr. Tromke was talking to you, but I didn't know about what.
So do you want to approve February 4th as amended? And then Kathy can make the amendments reflective in the
Well,
minutes
why
of.
don't you make the amendments, and then we can approve it after, so the board can see it. Or we could add, unless we can add, I'll make a motion as amended to state that there was a vote taken.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
vote reflected, Selectman Sexton made a motion to remove Article 1 from the town vote, second by
Mr. Chinaki.
Mr. Schnacky, and then called to vote, 2 yeses, myself and Mr. Schnacky, and 1 no, Mr. Joyce.
Right, and there was no discussion, to my knowledge, after,
Well, Glenn's just turning around and saying he's making, that there was actual motion, a second.
and I didn't hear it, so I can't say yes or no.
Right. And, but I had mentioned how in there I asked you and you said no.
Yeah, because you did say, hey, Jay, down the table, are you going to present Article 1? And I says, or you're not going to, I answered, no, I'm
So
going
that-
ahead with
that's-
Article
that-
1.
But that's my motion, as to approve the minutes as amended for February 4, 2019.
There a second?
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
I just like to see what they say first, because I don't know.
I'm sorry,
Well, how
Jay.
dare you?
Thought I passed it down. I thought I had a copy, I apologize.
So it really doesn't have to change that much from what he's got written here.
No, Glenn is just amending the minutes to read that a motion was made by Mr. Second and seconded by Mr. Chinaki.
That's what it says right here. On a motion by Mr. Sexton and seconded by Mr. Shinaki. The meeting was re-adjourned.
That's adjourned, but he's saying a motion to withdraw.
Draw.
Article 1?
Article 1 motion. That's what he's amending it.
The paragraph above that, Jay.
Okay.
Okay. That's all he's amending it to say, that there was a motion, a vote was taken 2-1. Okay? So do you have a problem with that amendment?
No, I didn't hear it. I can't say either yes or no.
So are you approving the minutes of February 4th as amended?
I'll just abstain because I don't know one way or the
So the
other.
answer is no.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
Nope, nothing else to come before you.
Okay, then I'm gonna make a motion at this time that we
Adjourn.
adjourn.
I second the motion before I get shot for my wife because I'm late.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.